The Star Wars Old Canon Book Club is made possible by contributions on Patreon. Head to patreon.com/SWOCBC for ad-free episodes, reading guides, movie and TV episode audio watch-alongs, and more. Today's Old Canon fact of the day comes from Star Wars: The New Essential Guide to Characters, revised edition by Daniel Wallace, first published in 2002. Han Solo was a criminal for many years, a pickpocket, a con artist, and a spice smuggler. His disreputable career began when he was taken in as a very young child by a felon named Garrus Shrike. Aboard the freighter Trader's Luck, Han learned the finer points of thievery from the other children kept aboard to further Shrike's scams. Today's selection is Star Wars: The Original Marvel Years Volume 1, a modern collection of classic Marvel comics by Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin, and Howard Chaykin, among others, whose latest issue was first published on April 18th, 1979. Enjoy the show, and may the Force be with you always.
Guys, welcome back to the Swak Box. Trying it out. What do you guys think? Swak Box?
Swaks Box is better.
We had the Swanack Back snack pack.
Swak Box?
I would love to
Swak
to
Box?
offer some sort of Swak Box type bento situation.
What do you... Swak Box bento?
You know, like a bento box, like a little bit
Lunch?
Yeah, it has like
we got some
buckwheat
comics,
noodles.
We got like a little like
Oh.
watch along.
Bantha
I
nuggets?
thought, like,
Rancor nuggets?
We like
Rancor sauce?
the offerings because we cover books and movies.
I get what you're saying. You're like just like a proverbial...
Just like conception, a metaphysical.
I don't know if that...
Kind of like how the Force is.
Yeah, I get that. We'll workshop it. Guys, welcome
It's
back.
the energy field.
Yeah, I get it. Welcome back to the show.
Measured in midichlorians.
Marvel Comics, guys. This is good stuff. We are now... Welcome back to the show. We are now in, like... How do I put this? Like, when I was in 5th grade, my teacher, to teach us about how the universe was created, he had us each grab a big piece of white paper and then scoop up a big piece of dirt in our hands and then just throw it as hard as we could right at the center of the paper. And it would like spread the dirt out on the paper. And you could like then look at the dirt and sort of like see how things started to like move and like you could see the motion of the dirt as it moved and how things clustered together.
Was that
And
supposed to be representative, like the Big Bang?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
and certain things clump and things are turning into miasma. And I feel like with this situation, which by the way is Star Wars: The Original Marvel Years Volume 1, I believe is what it says on that book.
It does say that.
Yeah. So this is in the 70s. Marvel Comics got this contract and nobody gave a fuck about it for a real long time. And it just kind of got made and they went into the situation of like, well, it's a pretty big movie. We talked about this last time where we're like, they knew that it was like a hit, but they didn't realize that it was like going to be with us 50 years later yet. And then they just sort of like went all these different directions with it, trying to get it out there. Cause like maybe in George Lucas's mind or whatever, or Fox's mind or whoever, I don't know. Like maybe this was going to be like part of the like recouping your investment type of stuff. I don't know. But so they ended up putting, the first, 7 issues out as just kind of like a normal retelling of the movie.
Well, not really. It's more the book, if anything.
That's true. It's more, it's closer to the
It seems like they didn't even see the movie yet when they put this out.
There's some lines and stuff that are like...
The only background stuff that I was doing into this is just the like interviews at the end of this, like the guy that was like the head of it in the beginning. And it sounded like he was given like storyboards. Well, one, apparently like DC and another one passed.
Yeah.
And even Stan Lee was like, no, but they like were persistent, which is interesting because the guy was like, honestly, if I had known that the other guys had passed, I would not have like even done this. But luckily they did because
they felt like they were getting something.
It literally saved Marvel.
And maybe they just thought it was cool. But yeah, basically what happened was Marvel almost went out of business. And this was selling so well that it literally like propped Marvel up for like several years.
They didn't say how many, but I guess a couple issues, because like the first 8 or whatever are the New Hope story.
I think it's the first 7, yeah.
Or first 7. But they said that a couple were released before the movie came out. And they were like, those actually sold pretty well. And then once the movie came out, it was like,
I mean, that's why they have things like Wormy and all the other stuff in the issues.
Yeah.
Things that are not in the movie, but are definitely in the book.
But there are, like, I remember, like, my cousin Matt or my cousin John, I forget which one it was, are significantly older than me. And so they were there for the original Star Wars. I remember, like, a classic story in my family is that my cousins were pissed when they were at my aunt and uncle's wedding. Like, they were just, like, so mad. And they were like, why are you guys so mad? And they were like, Star Wars was on TV tonight.
Why are they mad?
Because they had to come to a fucking wedding. Yeah. You know, he had these cards that were like trading cards. And on those cards,
Topps cards, maybe?
It was like something like that. But it was the ones where, like, on one side, it would have like a production still. And there's like definitely Anchorhead production stills on the cards. So I don't know, maybe that, like, in like the first two cuts of the movie, maybe there was still Wormy going on.
Maybe.
There definitely was.
Yeah.
I mean, the big, I think Rocket Jump did like a one that went big a couple years ago, talking about how it was like saved in the edit, but that stuff was there. They shot all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
But it even went into promotional materials. It even went into like official summaries. You know, in 1984, even at the beginning of the last episode, I put the fact of the day on there, and it was literally about Wookiees, but like one down from the entry was literally Wormy. And it's like a name that these two assholes used to call him at Anchorhead. So, like, I don't know, it like stayed in the zeitgeist at least for a while.
I mean, that's how we've said this before numerous times. That's how we all knew Palpatine's name, despite him never having a name in the old trilogy.
Yeah. And lots of other things, like how the fuck Darth Vader became Darth Vader. So I can't wait to find out how I know it. I can't wait to know
all those things. You're like, I just knew this, and I can't tell you how I know.
Because there is the lore, like magma and lava.
I knew there was lava. I was ready for the lava before episode 1 came out.
We all kind of knew. Yeah.
So I'm like, how the fuck did I know that? But anyway, we're here in Marvel Comics. But what happened is, and this is what I was getting to with the dirt analogy, is that we had Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was kind of like a swing and a miss for like establishing the tone of the expanded universe. Like, it didn't make it into the cut. Like, it's not really considered canon, even to the Legends universe. And then we got the holiday special, which is like
very canon, the most canon, I think.
Just another thing that they were like, how do we build out this media franchise? What do we do? And it was another just total swing and a miss. And I'm not saying Splinter of the Mind's Eye is bad. I'm just saying bad as the holiday special. I'm just saying both of those things are not what I know of as the Legends universe.
Are you about to say that this is the 3 strikes and you're out?
No.
This is another swing?
What I was going to say is that as we go through this, you will see the plot types and the sort of like archetypes and the sort of like situations that are Star Wars start to like congeal into something. And I think by the end of this, and I'm gonna just jump ahead and just say, I think around the arc that has to do with the wheel.
I was literally gonna say that I had that same, like, once the wheel arc was going, I was like, this is like what Star Wars.
It's almost.
I think we read like a similar arc in the Marvel comics of like, this is like what we expect from
the newest Marvel.
Well,
comic.
I mean, in a way, yes.
Not like everything that happens in it, but
it's almost.
But yeah.
It's almost. It's like
without spoiling, what we're going to talk about. The last issue before Empire Strikes Back, the comic, is cuckoo bananas bonkers.
Okay, that's not fair. Jesse technically read ahead of us.
Jesse's far in the Jesse.
I'm just saying, like, it is
knowledge.
Insane what ends up happening. But one of the things that is very true is that either the writers had information about what Empire was going to be, or they took some real good guesses, because as it goes on, the characters, as we know them, start to make appearance. Like, this is who Han Solo is, and this is his relationship to Leia, and I can see that coming together.
Yeah.
And I think that is very, very interesting, considering where this all starts.
Yeah. And I mean, like, okay. I'm certainly not saying that by the end of this comic book, we have Star Wars as we know it, but right. I do think that we are, like, for the sort of anthropological element of the show that we're doing, I'm starting to feel Star Wars coming online. And I think the next thing we're doing is Han Solo at Star's End.
Hell yes.
Which is, in my opinion, a book that I know well, first of all. I've read this book a lot of times. It was one of my big books when I was a kid. Is Star Wars. Like, it is the Star Wars that I know. I found it when I was young indistinguishable from the other books. I'm interested to read it again now as an older person and understand how wrong I was. But in my mind, the next thing that we're going to read to me is like true Star Wars, fully fledged Legends Star Wars, or at least I think it's canonized. I don't think these comics are canonized.
Not at all. No.
No, it wouldn't make
But some characters are back. Like Vance, what's his name?
Valance.
Valance, yeah. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. Valance, he is in the current Marvel universe. And it's funny that you say right before Empire, it's crazy because where Star Wars is in the comics, you're like not that far past it.
Interesting.
Even now in the like current Marvel comics. And it is kind of crazier. I don't know. Like Davis was on Twitter today because today, just to give you guys an idea of where we're at, today was the day that Holiday Special came out. Somebody showed Davis some mushroom planet from like the more recent Charles Soule run on Star Wars that's like similar to the red goo planet from
except
the
for
Holiday
instead
Special.
of that like liquid, it's all mushrooms.
Yeah, so nothing is being dropped even today. You know what I mean? Like it's not fully being dropped. There's still like vibes that pop up, and Star Wars is a D&D setting more than any sort of,
especially these comics.
Yeah.
Space D&D 100%.
especially not like, looking at Andor, something like now we can look at Andor and say that's Star Wars and we can appreciate the broadness of Star Wars. But back here, it's still pie in the sky. And now like kind of like the sequel to what we were talking about in the first book that we read, where we're like, these guys are not the famous characters that we know now. They are like just Han Solo is some smuggler. Like we are seeing that with the entire Star Wars universe of like writers just being like, I don't know what the Star Wars universe is. How about a fucking meat-eating green rabbit? How about that?
But they don't even know really what space is, which is fascinating because one of the notes I wrote down many times while going through this comic was space in this comic is basically the quantum realm in Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Crazy planetoids, weird orbs.
Kooky.
Wild stuff.
Every planet has like a genre. Like there's vibes. And honestly, in terms of like philosophically what they're doing, like I'm not going to say who is it, like who does it. There's Chaykin, Infantino. Who are the writers? It says right there, right? Right inside there. I just want to give them a shout out real quick because it should be like right on the
Roy
inside.
Thomas, Archie Goodwin, Howard Chaykin, Don Glutt, Chris Claremont.
Yeah. Chris Claremont. Whoa.
Wait, this must be like the post.
Chris Claremont is like the guy who like,
isn't he like X-Men?
Yeah,
X-Men
he's
guy?
like the Dark Phoenix guy and all that. Days of Future Past. But yeah, so all these guys, I'm not saying like they're like the guys that I would rather write Star Wars, but philosophically, the idea of them being like, it's pulp and like every time we tell a new story, it's going to be our opportunity to like approach a pulpy genre. I thought that was great. I thought that was like a great idea for how to do Star Wars that I think finally in modern times, they're finally sort of coming around to in the larger Star Wars way. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess sometimes it works, and sometimes, just like in the comics,
Right.
You're like, "What the
Swing
hell
and a miss.
am I looking
Swing
at?"
and a miss.
Yeah,
The thing that's interesting though is like it might be based off of like Star Wars, like based off of pulp, but it's not like the movies aren't like actual. Well, the original trilogy, they're not like actually pulpy. They're like elevated. They were like the basis of that, but like highly modernized
It was
for
like
their time.
if you played NES and then somebody like put out the sequel on PS5 of Pulp. Like it's like so much more expensive and like not low budget and not like, just so tropey. It's just so perfectly, exquisitely like realized.
Right.
Yeah.
but the problem is that the pulp nature of some of Star Wars, when mixed with what Star Wars has become, you get moments like in Book of Boba Fett, where they have those like street teams, and they do the weird spins, and they ride their colorful bikes, and it doesn't make any sense, but you know where they're coming from because of the history of Star Wars, but it's just, again, total swing and a miss.
And that shit feels that shit feels a lot more like this than
legitimately those like android multi-powered Planeteer kids are like exactly that.
Mhm.
So,
Well, but that's the other thing that I thought was really cool about this. And this is something that we can get into a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about Star Wars, the Star Wars movie adaptation, but Marvel Comics, right? They call these guys the Star Warriors like a million times.
dude, I was
So
gonna say
many
like, they're like the
times.
Z Warriors. They're like,
Well, it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's
Yeah.
like they're like it's superhero comics. Like this
well, and
space.
because there's only like at that point only Star Wars existed. So they're like, yeah, these are the
you're
Star
calling
Warriors.
you're calling it the quantum realm, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of like Jack Kirby. It's kind of like,
It is,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of like you're seeing a space that is a little bit more psychedelic, a little bit more.
The amount of pinks and pastels increases every single issue.
Yeah, dude, I
love it.
But if you think about the Star Warriors, if we're gonna call them that for the Marvel years, if you think about them as a superhero team, this whole shit just kind of like zoop, like comes together, and you understand why there's like more. They were like, can we make the team bigger? Like,
Right.
can we, you know? So I don't know. I would think about this as you're going through this. If you're reading this at home, or you've already read it, reflect on it, and just think about this as them writing superhero comics in space, because that's real. Like this space resembles so much more the cosmic Marvel that of this time period and even before this than anything that Star Wars did.
Absolutely.
Because Star Wars hadn't come out yet. They didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, so it's just kind of an interesting thing. But you guys ready to get into it?
Hell yes.
Yeah. So first of all, first thing that happens is we get Star Wars. We get 7 issues of Star Wars, and like Jesse said earlier, it's very similar to the Adventures of Luke Skywalker book, the first novelization. And the one thing I want to talk about that I really loved is the colors, because
It's beautiful.
Because obviously the drabness of the Empire does not translate well to comic books when there's not that many colors available to you to print. Like today, right? When you look at the Star Wars comics, you can see stuff that looks like movie stills practically. How much, because you can just use whatever color you want. You can do anything. In the 70s, right? Like I mean, we are living in luxury. Like these kind of rare collected editions that we have here are beautiful, and the printing is like so nice. If you go and you look at a comic shop and you find original of one of these, looks like somebody wiped their ass with it.
Yeah, I
is
believe
this
it.
version like the 4K remastered edition of
It's
them?
just a pure reprint. It's not like a scan. You know what I mean? It's not like a scan of the page. It's like the art reproduced at a high quality with lossless.
Okay.
And speaking of art, the art in this is brilliant in that it's very clear for, I'm going to say 60% of the assets, just the things in it. I don't think they had any clue what it was supposed to look like.
No, yeah.
And so you'll see things, the famous Luke with his mask on fighting the little Orby thing. It looks nothing like what you
It's
think
like
it would
a
look like.
sick all like metal.
Yeah.
Looks like a biker.
The Orby thing looks like a sea mine or something. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, you heard that roster of people that are on this. It's top Marvel talent.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at the time, I don't really know enough. I'm more of a DC like nerd than a Marvel nerd, so I don't know that much about the history, but like those names are, if you're a comic book reader, you know all the Howard Chaykin, like Chris Claremont, Archie Goodwin. Those are legends.
Even 3PO moves like a man.
Yeah.
Like he strides and struts and jumps, because I guarantee no one said this is how droids move. Like they hadn't established the rules.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to imagine that they conceptualized it visually without having seen it, and it still reads as Star Wars.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, so one of the things that they do in this that I really liked, going back to the colors, is that they just went with different colors for stuff. Like lightsabers are
They're like
different
red.
colors. Yeah, lightsabers are different colors. Vader is like green sometimes. Like
All the Imperial outfits.
Yeah, the Imperial outfits are like olive.
they look like G.I. Joes. It's kind of cool.
Tarkin's a blonde man, by the way.
Yeah, it's so unmistakably 70s, and like I didn't think, I was kind of like dreading this. I thought it was going to be like a slog. You know, I thought it was
Talking
gonna,
about the actual like rehashing of A New Hope.
I was
part of
bummed
it.
when I opened a book and I realized that I was just going to read Star Wars again, the movie again.
I
Right.
had a similar
Yeah.
feeling, but I'm assuming we both had a similar. Like by the end, it was.
Well, here's what I realized too, which I was talking to somebody about this. I don't think it was either of you. I don't remember, and I might have said this already, but like people couldn't just watch Star Wars.
Right,
this
right,
time.
right. Yeah.
Which is important to remember, because when I was a kid, how many times did I watch Star Wars? You know what I mean? How many times did you watch your tapes with Leonard Maltin?
VHS.
You know the one where Leonard Maltin's like, "Hi, I'm talking to George Lucas about Star Wars," and he's like, "I can't believe it." That version, I literally destroyed my tapes. I watched them so much, right? But in the 70s, there's no home video like that. So if you want to relive the movies, you're going to have your little binder with your 7 Star Wars comics in it and read them over and over and over again. because that's actually the closest you can get. It's not like boring retread.
Mhm.
It's, it's a weird way to think about.
And if
like,
you're a kid, you're gonna like reread that over rereading the novelization.
right? Because like it's Marvel Comics. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sick, and your parents won't like. It's your own little punk thing. It's dope. But yeah, we get the first issue is just Star Wars. We get the Anchorhead scene. We get the Vader breaking the neck scene. I thought it was funny that Princess Leia got shot with the paralysis.
Blasted.
She
Like
got shot with a paralysis ray instead of a stun.
that image, that panel, she's like blasted. It's wild.
Yeah, a lot of stuff just seems more violent in the comics because
Yes.
it's got to be motion.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that I've appreciated from now, like reading the same, like experiencing the same story in 3 different mediums, is that each medium has like its strong suits, and space battles in comics are fucking sick. And anytime there's like an action beat, maybe because like in 70s you just didn't have like the lightsaber fights and stuff, that kind of stuff didn't like translate to video as well. But yeah, like the Greedo shot, her getting shot, these things you're like,
So cool.
this fucking slaps. In
It's
the
like
comic.
it's like more expressive than a movie could ever be. Also, Chewbacca's invincible.
Also, Chewbacca fucks.
Yeah.
and
Chewbacca's
Chewbacca
so good.
is like different proportions and a different face every.
It's like
issue.
Chewbacca in this.
Wild.
Yeah.
I was like, what do
Chewbacca
you think he
being-
looks like.
Chewbacca being like huge in this is like, in my mind, like truer to like what they wanted Chewbacca to be before the limitations of like having to put a man in the costume.
Yeah, it's like if you could just have it your way, he would be like a 10-foot tall.
yeah, exactly.
But his face also just looks like a really hairy man
yeah,
in this, which is very
it
funny.
looks like his name is Jeb.
He has like a different color mustache. It's
Yeah.
great.
He looks a lot more like a dog.
Mhm.
Yeah, we get the first cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is when Luke gets jumped by the sand person.
Oh, by the way, Leia's father in this is Bail Antilles.
Yeah,
That was a like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because they didn't
I think they just didn't
watch
know.
the movie and they were like, it's her father's shit. Like, clearly the guy that was the captain must be your father.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, who knows?
It only makes sense.
Well, I don't know. It's a really unlikely name.
But these,
It'll never come back. You're
this
right.
is a fucking other thing where like, these came out before the movie came out, so they couldn't just watch it either.
Tons of little mistakes that would
And-
drive Davis in the 70s crazy.
Well, and I didn't know until after reading all this that was the order it came out in. So I was just like, I guess nobody cared. But then I'm like, oh, you might have literally.
Well, but
just
also
not,
nobody
there was
cared.
no, but like you again didn't have like Twitter. Like, how are you going to just ask? You couldn't just bother George Lucas
Right.
like for the answers. They're probably like, you can't just do that.
To be
just
honest,
figure
I
it
don't
out.
know that George knew
yeah.
at the time. I think he was making it up as he went along.
Well, I heard that George like didn't love the direction that they kind of went with the comics. I heard that he came in and he nixed Jackson.
They talk like the
Poor
the
Jackson.
stuff after.
Yeah.
Which I was going to save till we get to that part, but we can talk about. He didn't like it. That's why the guy left. Like the Roy Thompson or whatever.
Roy Thomas.
Or Thomas. I guess he was the guy that was the steward of the Conan comics.
Yeah.
Post the original.
Wow, that
author's
explains
death.
a lot about those.
And
Yeah.
when they were like, George doesn't like this, he was just like, bye. I'm gonna go back to my. He's like, I love my work. I'm going back to Conan.
Damn, that explains a lot about what happened.
He's not even like sore about it either. He's just like,
I mean, when you work at Marvel Comics, you better not be married to your shit, man.
Well,
Like
he was saying that after the movies, they were like, you can't progress Luke or Leia. You can't progress any of Luke or Leia because they were still figuring it out. You can't really show Darth Vader at all because we don't know what's going on with him. And so he was like, all I could do was just take, like, I got to have, because my notes early on were like, so the comics are like a Han and Chewie story, like for
Pretty much,
issues
yeah.
after, it's like their adventures. And then knowing like, that's all he could do. And basically he was like, well, the first one was like what was the samurai film it was based off of? He was like, I could just do 7 Samurai.
yeah.
So
Well, that's kind of funny because he almost. Well, we'll get there. Okay. Star Wars. Anchorhead. They get shot by they find that'll lead us back home. Well, I'm trying to remember if there's anything that's different. I don't really think so.
In episode 2, in issue 2, I just want to say, Davis, you have the book in front of you. The last page of issue 2 might be the most t-shirt worthy page of anything ever, it is them jumping into hyperspace.
Oh, dude.
And it is the visualization of
I
what
want that on my
hyperspace
wall.
looks like.
Yeah.
There are a
It is
lot that are
beautiful.
just.
I would hang that in my
fucking sick.
bathroom. That is the coolest shit
It
I've
is
ever
one.
seen.
It is so nice.
Oh, this also reminds me because I pulled the covers of these are a lot like, and I get that this is like a comic thing, but it's so weird to see the cover for the issues like are lies. So the second issue shows like the cantina scene and fucking like Luke in the middle of it with his gun, and he's like, "Swing that lightsaber, Ben, or we're finished."
Yeah.
It's like because he's like the hero, I guess.
Yes,
They make him the like the center of every cover, even though you're like, watch the movie. He's like a whiny,
Yeah.
like he just like is a passenger for the movie until
Yeah.
the end. But all of these are like him doing the final episode for this. When, you know, him and Vader are in spaceships, they just show him like in a lightsaber fight.
There's
as
a
the
part where
fucking cover of the goddamn
they're
thing.
like-
You're
they're like-
fighting the New Hope.
They're like fighting, and then like the Death Star is like in the sky. Like it's very funny.
Leia's like on the ground, like
Yeah.
next to Luke.
But
Like,
you
oh.
know, outside of the context of Star Wars, comic books been doing that shit forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
was
still
like,
do it. Yeah,
I just it was weird to cross.
it's like a still image that is like a trailer for like the entire issue.
It's like a
so weird.
clickbait
Yeah, exactly.
thumbnail, but it's yeah.
Give me that hyperspace shot. What's
Oh,
going
shit,
on?
sorry,
I gotta
sorry.
see this.
I was just
Yeah, it is one of the best things I've ever seen in my
I
entire
just want a
life.
glimpse.
Last page, issue 2, absolutely fantastic. It is, again, the
It's lit.
perfect. Look
It's
at
lit.
the perfect t-shirt shot. I looked at that shot. I looked at that image for, I'm going to say maybe 25 minutes. Like, damn.
It's tight because like the Falcon.
and the Falcon's like coin.
It doesn't even look right, but it just looks sick.
Yeah.
And the fucking Kirby crackle in the back. It's a
the
perfect.
stars and the weird planets and the lines of color.
Go check that out,
Dude,
kids.
the sick thing is, I guess like you could tell what Greek statues were like original or like Roman knockoffs because the Romans wouldn't bother like doing the side you wouldn't see.
Right.
And that's like the Millennium Falcon, the sides and the top, intricately detailed. It's like the bottom. There's
They just have no
they're just
idea.
Like,
They have no
like a
idea
toy.
what
They're
it
like,
looks
well,
like.
we didn't know you were going to see it, so it's just all
It's smooth, bro.
completely
Yeah.
smooth.
Then we get to the Death Star. We get the Han going to break out the princess.
By the way, the Death Star to Millennium Falcon ratio is way off.
Oh yeah.
The Death Star is so small compared to
Yeah.
the Falcon. It's crazy.
They just kind of do whatever they need to fit it in the frame.
proportions-
Yeah.
The proportions for all of these are off because like the Star Destroyer is like the same size as the Corvette, even though like the movie pretty famously opens with
It eating
a
it alive. Yeah.
scale differential.
Again, I don't think they had any clue how anything was supposed to look. They just
Yeah.
had an idea.
And comics are just a tricky medium in general. Like we all think about comics in the sense of like what's going on in our imagination. I think more than like the action of a comic is like more like a book than we realize a lot of the time. And you know, I might have read 3 or 4 more comics than you guys in my life. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 more
maybe.
in my life. But for me, like going between like new comics from now and comics from like 50 years ago, X-Men #1 or something like that, Spider-Man 15, whatever, like what a comic is and like how the action is told to you in the 70s, it's like not quite representational of reality. Like nowadays, I feel like we're trending a lot more towards like storyboards as comics, which I think makes sense because we just have access to so much more. Like artists can create like fucking amazing things by themselves. But I think in the 70s, like some of that size differential stuff, it's like they're not really trying to say like, oh, these things are different sizes. Same thing with Chewie. It's just like magical realism of like Chewie gets bigger when he gets angrier because it looks tight. It sells the it's like how in animation, like a dude like can like swing his arm around or whatever for a second and then it goes super long, but then it's nice. His arm's not actually that long, but we like get that it's kind of telling us an action. And it's kind of weird to think about, as this is a book club, that what we're seeing on the page is not representative of reality. And if you think about it, nothing moves. I don't know. It's comics are an interesting medium, especially when you're adapting a movie. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, like
Just a little thought.
well, it's like when Greedo gets shot, it's like I
Like
don't.
blew off the side of the cantina.
It's like
yeah.
it's not like maybe that it's like anime where like you add like the emphasis for the vibe.
Sure.
Yeah. Issue 3 goes from Alderaan being destroyed to Luke going, I'm here to rescue you. And they go out of the they're like on the run by the end. Then we get the ambush in the detention center in issue 4. Luke and Leia, the bridge swing kiss thing is like way like different like vibe than the movie version.
Yeah.
Kind of like sexier in a weird way.
It was interesting, like how some scenes. Well, first of all, like the way that they tell this to me, I was reminded of like how Kingdom Hearts like will pace a story. How you'll like get to see the story of Aladdin. Like this was like the movie because like they would have some scenes, and then some of those scenes would have almost the exact same dialogue.
Right.
And then other things you would like. They would like start a new scene with a speech basically explaining a scene from the movie that didn't happen.
Right.
And then it would have like all new dialogue. And it was just like very weird. And that's like another scene where you're like, all right, well,
that's actually,
they did these things in the movie. It didn't really happen like this, but
yeah, going
sure.
back, going back to what I was just saying about comics being kind of representational. A thing that happens a lot in this book that is like, there'll be a line on the page that's like, oh my God, he cut off that guy's arm. Or like, you know, like, oh my God, he just shot us. You just blew that ship up. Good job, man. But we know that happened because we know this plot of Star Wars so well. But it's like when you just see an explosion on the thing, you don't really know what happened for sure if you don't know the story.
Yes.
So there's like all these weird like things like that happening. Issue 5 is them like crying on the Millennium Falcon all the way. They get to Yavin, and then she delivers the plans, and then it's the like reward thing, and then we get the like Blue Leader stuff. Blue Leader knew Darth Vader.
They're old chums.
I'm sorry, he knew Mr. Skywalker, who may or may not be Darth Vader, and probably wasn't Darth Vader to begin with.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, but he was like, if you're half the pilot your dad was, you're going to be a killer out there, right? And so,
Yeah.
which is like crazy to think about, like this like guy who's like a little bit older than Luke, knowing Luke's dad as a pilot. And then we get Leia in the command room at the end of the issue, and then issue 6 is the Death Star run, and I guess it's only the first 6 issues that are the movie.
So is it the first 6?
Yeah.
Which apparently also I learned in that back interview, originally his like editor or whatever was trying to get him to do 2 issues to cover the whole movie.
Oh my
And he
God.
was like, no.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which
These
is even
20
with the
pages,
6, you're just like missing a bunch.
Yeah.
So
I mean, honestly, I think they lay it out good. I think like the pacing is pretty good. Like the Biggs thing for me in the comics resonates. Like I wouldn't have cut the Biggs thing if I was deciding to do it from the comics.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
The-
Like it really is like a nice little B plot that has like, let's check in with Biggs here, let's check in with Biggs here, and then he dies. You know what I mean?
yeah. Actually, some fun Biggs note is like, forever I've like wanted a little more Biggs because he was so important to Luke, and I actually like am good. I
Yeah.
got it. Like between the book and then the comics having like flashback issues of them in Beggars Can't, I'm like, cool. I like actually got
Right.
more Biggs, and it's not the problem that we have where like Biggs then has to become the hero of his own thing. He's all the Biggs that he would ever be every time.
Yeah.
It's never compromised.
He's like a real guy.
He never becomes like swashbuckling super spy Biggs. He's always like the best bud of Luke, and you get more context and more stuff together. And I'm like, wow, I actually just like completely got it. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm
Also in the 70s, one big difference between now and the 70s is that as a teenager, I definitely wouldn't have hung out with like a man with a mustache.
That's grown adult porn star.
Yeah, but I feel like everybody in the 70s kind of was like a mustache guy, even in high school. So shout outs
Yeah.
to mustaches.
I mean, he's the same. He's only like, what, 2 years older than them?
That's what I mean. It's just, he just looks like he's 15 years older because he's got like a beautiful Tom Selleck
Yeah.
Magnum PI mustache. And then we get to issue 7 called New Planets, New Perils.
It's Space D&D. Full on Space
We
D&D.
get right in there. And basically, so Battle of Yavin, Han is like, I got to go deal with Jabba real quick. They go to Mos Eisley again, but then before they get there, in comes Crimson Jack.
Crimson Jack and Jolly, I think is her name.
Dude.
Jolly-
His like sidekick.
Dude.
Before we like dive into the specifics, what my big takeaway or a big like thing that I wanted to chat with you guys about, if you got the same vibe, was like, now that we have seen several different creative teams or people run with Star Wars, I have an even bigger appreciation for how how modern George Lucas's vision for sci-fi was, because nobody else
Empire Strikes Back shits on every single one of these ideas.
Seeing, but like, he made Star Wars, and then as soon as anybody else gets it, they do like weird pirates in space. Like,
it's all Flash Gordon.
And even if like the basis for his story was like a dumber Dune, visually, unmatched, untouched.
The whole like postmodern pastiche element is like so next level on that.
Not until the Wheel arc does anything resemble like Star Wars world, universe, creatures, tech. Like,
but you know what?
They're literally pirates, like actual pirates, but like they have a laser, like, and they call them ray guns.
Yeah.
Like whenever they're writing, they're like, well, I'm a space smuggler and I gotta go. Like
that's what the vibe was in the 70s. Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp joke, like you just put quantum in front of everything. They like just say like, oh, well, I'm a traveling space.
They literally fight Snidely Whiplash at one point. Like the dude starts off like, man, I got you. Like
Arrogantis.
Yes.
Arrogantis. Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous.
But you know what
they have Don Juan Quixote.
Okay, don't get into that. Dude, that is actually, I fucking love that guy. I fucking love that guy. But the point is that the thing I think is that like in the movie, you get a very good idea of pretty much just what the Empire is in Star Wars, the movie. Like they introduce a lot of concepts. They introduce like moisture farmers. They introduce Jedi. They introduce smugglers. But I think the only thing that's like really fleshed out to the point that you're like, I could take this in the 70s and write a story about it, and it would be similar to what the Empire is in 2023. I think the most that you get is the Empire in Star Wars 1. And I think that that's why the Wheel works. And I think that's why this seems weird with Crimson Jack, is because I just genuinely don't think they had a good idea of what a smuggler was.
But it's like they have no basis for the man's outfit. Is He-Man?
He has like
he's
naked,
like a He-Man character.
He's like naked. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a superhero comic.
It's like what is it?
He's like Thor.
Rogers. What's the fucking
Flash
Gordon? They all have that like sci-fi where they're all like in
bathing
tights
suits
or naked, and that's like what versus all fully clothed things that make sense. Like it's just a completely different thing.
That becomes Han Solo. Han Solo spends a good portion of these comics shirtless. Chewie is every color
unkillable.
of the rainbow he's banging. He is banging across the universe.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Chewie is unkillable. He's like the Superman of this story. So here's the dumb thing about this. Crimson Jack is like, I'm going to be taking that reward, Mr. Solo. Thank you so much. First of all, which sucks for Han and Chewie. The big reward money they just got from Leia. And then he's like, maybe we should kill you. And then he's like, but maybe I won't kill you, because how then am I going to steal from you again, bro? Which to me is like the dumbest thing that you could do as a pirate. That's like,
yeah, but you know what actually helped me like really get into the vibe of these? Grant Morrison's like book that Super Gods.
Yeah.
Contextualize like, you know, nowadays George Lucas would be like, I made it for kids, but like, no, he didn't. Star Wars wasn't for kids. These comics are clearly aimed at kids, and their idea of like romance and danger and stuff is like
very
the Peter Pan
simple,
movies level of it. Like you're not really supposed to like, almost nothing that anybody does makes any sense from if you looked at them as the characters in the movie, but in the sense of like a bigger than life pirate character. And yeah, he would probably kill him, but it's kind of like I like you and respect you. Give me a reason to like, let you live.
Right.
Oh, I'll get you next to like, nobody's like really that like lethal, even though they like are. It's weird.
Crimson Jack is almost Talon Card, but he's like 1.0. He's like almost this awesome character, but you don't get enough of him, and he's so weird.
His sidekick has no place being in.
Dude,
Jolly has no place being in Star Wars.
Jolly's like an unfortunate, like that's.
We get more into that.
Look at how cool and progressive Leia is, especially in the 70s, that she kicks more ass. Like she's like
Jolly sucks.
Jolly is like the thought of kissing a man ends her life. Like he completely fries her brain
that
and
she could
kills
kiss
her.
Yeah.
Like that's just like the thought that, hey, maybe you would want to kiss a guy, like throws her
straight to hell.
into chaos, and you're like, this is unfortunate.
But that actually doesn't happen.
I feel gross
that actually
reading.
doesn't happen for a while because at this point,
You're right.
She literally, one of the first lines she says is literally, "Let me blast them."
yeah.
Like, come on, she sucks.
I mean, that's better. That's better than let me
Frank
kiss him.
Reynolds.
But yeah, so now they don't have any money. Crimson Jack's just like, let him live. Peace out. And so now they're like afraid of Jabba again. So this time, by the way,
Jabba's just like a slug.
But
Or no, what is he? He's a
Jabba's like a yellow, like toothbrush looking, Easter bunny looking dude.
Yeah, I forgot. In the retelling, he just is like,
I forgot about that. Yeah, he's like yellow. He's like a yellow dude with like green eyes and white hair. He doesn't even look like the dude from the movie.
it is weird. Also, given the context, like of when it came out, there's really no reason it should.
Right?
I mean, who
Yeah.
cares? Like again, it was the 70s. This was a time when you just drive your kids around in the back of your pickup truck on the freeway and nobody gave a shit. So, people had other things on their minds. Then they get to
Like kissing, man.
I'm just saying,
Like kissing.
dude, comics had some way to go to catch up to where movies were at. I'll just put it that way. Comic book nerds were a real thing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Aduba 3, they arrive, and the vibe right away, because here's the thing. You want to tell a story quickly in a comic book, you need to do like a quick, just like you get what this is. So they're like, it's an old washed up mining town after a chromium rush, which is like the calf of gold, right? So it's a chromium rush, a washed up chromium rush town where the the chromium ran out before the town did. And now it's just kind of like a shithole. And
Speaking of chromium real quick,
yeah,
that and many other just Star Wars buzzwords and Star Wars titles and Star Wars just like words. It isn't even necessarily associated with what it ends up becoming, are from the comics. They clearly just went back like, we gotta figure out what stuff's called, and just pulled from titles, from characters, from random lines of dialogue, major important things that show up later in the lore that you're like, wait, that's what this is from?
that's how we got here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What's that dude's name from the cantina? Wirt, the bartender in Mos Eisley. He had such an effect on the state of robots in the Marvel universe for Star Wars, because the next thing that happens is that when they're in this like empty, washed up mining town, there's a priest who's like Book from Firefly kind of, and he's trying to bury a Borg, which is a
cyborg.
It's like the droid of Cyborg.
Or
right?
it's like just he's a human with.
Well, what I mean is there's androids, and then Star Wars is like, no, they're droids. And then there's cyborgs, and then Star Wars is like, no, they're Borgs.
Yeah, Borgs are just.
But everybody fucking hates them. This Borg is dead, and they're just trying to bury this person.
It was weird because I'm like, this is mind blowing. Given that in the next movie we're gonna start like cyborgs are just people. It's like our main character gets it. Like everybody just has robot parts, and it's not even weird anymore. So here they were like racist against him, but I guess. There's Spacer Hill, where if you were a spacer, you get to get buried there, and that's where they were trying to take him.
The only thing they had about robots, the only anybody says is, we don't serve your kind here. So they were like, oh, there's like racism.
Well, and then in the book, we know that they're just appliances. Like they're not, and then later in the comics, even Luke has to be like, I know you don't think of droids as whatever, but we don't treat them like that.
Fucking Uncle Owen. Dude is like, shut up. Like,
dude, the fucking wheel robot, the master control unit or whatever.
That's a whole other crazy. That's an insane story. We'll get there. We'll get there.
You're right.
So Chewie steps in. Nobody messes with Chewie. Han's like, as long as Chewie's here, nobody's gonna bother you. The priest is like, I'll give you a little money if you bury this fucker on Spacer Hill where he belongs. And they're like, okay. And basically they get ambushed by guys that are like throwing rocks at them like the fucking Hunger Games or some shit, because that's how they show their racism, is by throwing rocks at these people. And so
that's pretty standard like mob mentality. Somebody throws, because then it's like just a fist fight, like a shove up or whatever they call it.
Well, they try not to kill him, but
until one guy pulls out an axe,
right? And so it's like, all right, Chewie's like, I'm gonna kill all these guys, and
they wipe out like 7 of them or something, but it's okay. Because the priest is like, well, don't worry. It was in a fair fight, so they're not going to give you any trouble. Which I was just like,
Smuggler's
what a
code,
beautiful bit of like, well, I mean, they don't know who you are. You came into the town and just murdered a bunch of them.
Sorry for the mess.
They get it.
sorry for the mess. Here's some money.
Priest knows what's up.
I guess he does later buy everybody a round of drinks.
So then what happens is, this is hilarious. In the fight, I guess somebody shot the bantha for some fucking reason. Like some fucking asshole shot the bantha in the fucking head and killed him.
Dude.
So then they have to be like, so Chewie just has to like carry this dead body up a hill. And then they get there, the priest does the ritual, and then the priest is like, they're like, where's the cantina? And the priest's like, over there. And then they're like, okay. And they go in there, and to like smooth things over, sorry for the mess, they like buy rounds for the bar, and everybody's like, okay, you guys are cool. And then these guys show up, and they're like, we have a little job for you, Mr. Solo. So then we're gonna find out what that is in number 8.
And again, this is Han Solo. All Han Solo. For numerous issues, any Luke and Leia is like, we're hanging out, doing nothing. and then it's like flashes back to Han.
Yeah.
Right.
But they kind of like nailed it. Like, it's not like good Han necessarily, but it's accurate. Like, he like cracks wise the same way. He does, like, I don't know. They like characterized him pretty consistently. It's cool.
Yeah. So Han hits on a girl right at the beginning of this.
Chewie hits on many girls.
Chewie hits on many men and throws one of them out of the bar. And then they go back and they're like, we are farmers. This is literally, this story begins to become the Magnificent Seven, basically. Because we're in cowboy times. It's literally Seven Samurai. Sergi X Erigantis is the name of the pirate. And every year he rolls around and comes to
piece of shit.
He comes. It's literally the plot of Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
He comes around and he
takes the women,
takes money. You have to, or he fucks you up if you don't have any money.
And
so
again,
they're like,
he definitely goes, meow.
meow, 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 meow. Dude, this dude is fucking weird.
He does not belong in Star Wars at all.
No, he does not. And but he's like a Old West villain. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly. He's literally like the Boys. His gang's like called like the Boys.
Even though his outfit's red, it very much has like a 1860s U.S. cavalry vibe.
Exactly. And I don't think that's by accident.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So he's like, we'll pay you if you do it. And he's like, okay. And then he has like tryouts, which is like a hilarious way to.
He does tryouts, but he also completely inexplicably is shirtless. He's just like,
that's badass.
Like, no, I know. It's weird because like they're in his like room, like trying people out, and he just has no shirt on.
He's taking
like,
a break.
He has like the biggest body. Like he is like
he's got that Kylo square body.
Yeah, it's like actually yes, it's like that weirdly
jacked high waist pants Kylo square body.
I don't think that like Han is schlubby, but I wasn't imagining that he like
was jacked.
Never skips any day.
Yeah.
But considering in these comics, I'm gonna say every single woman except maybe Leia is in short, like booty shorts and like barely a top.
But you know what? I kind of like the characters that we meet at this point.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, graphically, it's still very 70s comic where everyone's very sexified and there's sort of this, like, there's a reason you're reading this kind of vibe.
It's very much like Star Wars has the lived in galaxy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Marvel comics do not have that.
Right.
The Marvel comics are like sparkly, right? It's kind of weird. Everybody has like the hoop shoulders and like a skirt for some fucking reason.
It's those damn kids on Tatooine in their pristine
literally
bikes and their outfits. Because the vibe from Canteen, if you saw the movie, there's no way you would think, oh yeah, no, there's sparkly shit in this universe.
Yeah, exactly. So then we meet a cast of characters who I love, and I'm just going to go down the line here. There are something called spinners or something like that.
I thought it would be spiners.
Oh yeah, maybe you're right. Spiner. This is a man called Hedgie.
They're just like porcupine.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, except the thing that's different than a porcupine is that he can just fire them at like distance as like deadly weapons, which honestly, kind of outside the realm of Star Wars in a way, but also kind of like if this character showed up in Star Wars, I'd be fine with Hedgie. He's kind of like a Chewbacca type character, right?
What's kind of sick is because and with his outfit, we're talking about Pope. Like, I got Lando comic vibes. Was like this kind of character was like those Panther.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Panther Brothers.
Yes. Actually, just because we're talking about pulp stuff, like the Lando comic is the best example of like that feels like the fucking characters that we were meeting in this, but like modernized and written fucking sick.
Also, by the way,
while still keeping all the cool shit that is what makes them kind of exciting.
Yeah. Also, by the way, go buy the Lando comic that's out right now. There's another one that's out right now. The art is amazing. The story is great.
Does it open with him banging an imperial governor and then stealing her shit? Because that was amazing.
I think this one is even more interesting than the last one that we read. And I think there's another one too.
Does it have like a big fat green guy who has fairies that talk for him?
Kind of. I'm not gonna get into it. I don't want to spoil it because it's like out on the stands right now. Then we get Amaza, who is from the Black Hole Gang. She's just like she reminds me of what's her name from Solo, who dies, Woody Harrelson's.
Yeah.
I forget what her name is, but it's like Val or something like that.
Val, yeah.
She has that vibe. She has like a nice, big, cool, like Afro situation going on. Very cool character. Kind of just like girl Han Solo.
Sure.
More than anything, except she's like good at killing.
In a Western, she's like, maybe she runs the brothel and has like a pistol in her stockings.
Yeah, but she's kind of more like a gang leader.
The Black Hole Gang.
And then we get Don Juan Quixote, which is like kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think is like the joke.
But it's like a pun.
But it's Don Quixote,
and Don Juan?
Like guy who believes he's a knight.
Knight, yeah.
And he's delusional. But in this, it's not clear. It's not clear whether he's a knight or not.
Oh, no, he believes he's a Jedi Knight. It's weird because he has just full medieval armor.
He has like yellow gold armor, but he does also have a lightsaber.
He has a lightsaber and he does some force. Honestly, like
I thought this character
is like
awesome.
What's his face from Rogue One, like
or Hala or whatever her name is, the like witch lady from
Sure, but I'm thinking of like
like I'm one with the Force. Chirrut.
Yeah, like how it's like you're not really. Well, I think somebody says, "Fuck." I wrote down like the first time they ever said like I am one with. I think he even says that, and I was like, no,
they don't necessarily come down.
Like they pull so much.
Yeah, they're
from
like
this.
expressions where you're like, no way, this is this. Fuck.
Do you
right all along.
Do you
This is
think
a
he was
reference to the
definitely
comics.
not a Jedi? Do you think he was definitely not one?
I don't know, but they lead you to believe that he wasn't a Jedi, except that a couple times he does some things that are.
I wonder if George Lucas said, no Jedi.
And so they made him this. Honestly,
They kept saying he wasn't a Jedi, but he did one really Force thing.
Yeah, and he has a lightsaber, which like, come on.
But like other people can get lightsabers.
Other people can, but like in 1970, whatever, like, I don't know. It feels like kind of cool. It feels kind of like mysterious.
It's cool and rare, but also in the books, they're like, oh yeah, lightsabers. Those are pretty rare. You don't see that often.
Mm-hmm.
So
Anyway,
it's like, okay, but you would see them.
I like him not being a Jedi. I like the idea of him just kind of being a dude who then
Jedi
maybe
fan?
tapped into the Force at one point.
Travis touchdown.
Yeah, you're like, okay, he did a thing.
Yeah, I vibe
Cool.
with that. Then an alien from the bar tries to like hop into the line, but then a big ass green rabbit that's like 7 feet tall that eats meat. It's weird. He's a green rabbit, and it's very clear. He wants to make it very clear that he loves eating meat for some reason. I don't know why.
We also do not call him short at all, ever.
Yeah.
This is like the era of comics where people just say their personalities all the time.
Yeah.
And so like, I think almost every time he does something, either that he is a big rabbit, that he eats meat, not carrots, or that he's like some other thing. Like that's always brought up every time he talks. That's it.
Right.
I think out of all the characters, this is the one they were like, this is it. This is the guy. We're going to sell the hell out of Jax.
Dude, and that's the one I think that specifically George Lucas was like, no,
Yeah.
I hate this.
Which is probably why dude
Which
left.
is like, when you look at that, when you look at this image of the back, they even like changed Don Juan Quixote's like armor and he looks kind of Star Warsy. There's just that's just not Star Wars, man.
Jackson?
Like, Jackson is
I
like,
think he does look Star Wars. I think it's
No, he
harder
looks Star Wars there because he's literally wearing
the
a flight
fucking-
suit.
the spider.
I think it's hard to swallow the giant green rabbit.
I guess in the back panel they make him look, but the way that they draw him Bugs Ass Bunny in the
yeah, because it's a
comics.
cartoon. Yeah, it's like so fucking weird that he's just like he's got a gun. He like kicks people to death with his big ass feet. But he's also like the most like homey of all the guys. Like he's the most to me.
He's like the most like honorable.
He's just like the most like I would hire this guy the most. If I was Han Solo, he seems like the most.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like he has the vibe of a character that they were going to keep bringing back over and over
Yeah.
and over and over again. And I get why Lucas was, nah, I don't think we should
And then
do this.
I don't remember what the kid's name is, but the last guy that he talks to is like a guy that's like,
He
he's
just
like,
looks like Wormy.
well, he's like, yeah, he's like,
He has like
This
that
reminds me of
weird
Luke.
helmet or the hat. Like he just looks like
yeah. He's like, I wonder what Luke is up to now that I'm seeing this guy that reminds me of Luke. And then we go back to Yavin and we find out that Luke's going to go look for the new rebel base. And then Luke is like, I'm going to kill Darth Vader for what he did to Ben Kenobi, which is not very Jedi-like in my mind.
he's
And
not
then-
Jedi yet though.
No, that's true. And then he's like, I wonder what Han's doing. Just goes back in the same comic back to Han. And he hires the farm boy and they like line up and they're about to go. And then Sergi X Aragontis rolls up again. And the guy in the gang that asshole alien guy turns out to be a guy in Sergi's gang who was trying to like mess up Han Solo's.
Infiltrate, yeah.
And then he's like, tell you what, how about I just pay you? How about I just pay you more than these assholes? And Han's like, go fuck yourself. And then they jump on a bantha and head to the village. Now we're in issue 9. And
It is interesting that like Han totally becomes a hero and is like, why am I doing this? And then later goes back to not being a hero. Like this entire run does not match with his like, or I guess he's like, I must still be riding off of whatever the rebellion stuff, but it's like, no, you wouldn't do this, but I'm glad you did because we have a comic.
yeah. So they get to the village and he's like, what the fuck am I doing here? But then he's like, oh shit, these big ass birds are attacking this town. So he has to go in there and save the crops. And it turns out like the group is like actually pretty good. And basically Han sees this young damsel, saves her from the birds. The birds retreat. They get to the village. And then they meet Ancho, who's the father of Mary, which is the girl that Han saved from the bird. And Amaza's like, when are you going to fuck that girl? And Han's like, dude, shut up.
Dude,
Hell
because Han throughout all of this just keeps getting like the first issue of this arc is like a blue lady is like at the cantina is what leads him to the like guys who are like, help our town, please.
He's such a hornswoggler.
Yeah.
Then we're on Yavin 4 again.
Who you calling swoggly?
Who you calling Swoggly? And then Leia's.
Can you imagine Chewie and Han and a gorilla? That team would be like
Chewie, like
sick.
Chewie, like
The two of them
trying to figure it out. So Leia's waiting for a message from Luke back on
Goofy
Yavin.
and Pluto
Yeah.
doing a mission together.
What the fuck is up? Do you think around the campfire at night that Goofy and Pluto would be like, "What's going on here? How do you explain this, Pluto?"
I don't know, but there was
I don't
they
know.
like had
Have
that
some.
new like Mickey Mouse like
I live in
shorts.
I live in a
and that,
neighborhood.
like things they do, and
Yeah.
they had an episode that like almost dealt with that.
Yeah.
And it was like
That show is
weird
That
to-
show is very clever. I like that show a lot. That
it was
Mickey
weird
show.
to see them like almost address it.
That's
But not actually like address it.
If you have Disney Plus, that's actually like a worthwhile show. I forget what it's called. It's called The Adventures of Mickey and Minnie or something.
Yeah, it's sick.
It's the same one that they based the like new ride in Toontown off of. It's like really cool.
Yeah.
Good cartoon.
It's really tight and it's great to watch if you live in California.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
There's always money in the banana stand.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
All right.
So back on a Doob or 3.
A Doob or 3. Luke finds this planet called Drexel.
Pretty fucking good segue.
I'm in
Yeah,
there.
it was
I got
good.
you.
It
I
was
got
good.
it. I got you. A Doob or 3.
You guys know I write comedy on these.
He was talking.
I hear that.
What Davis meant was that you should be high.
What? No.
All right. And Drexel is the planet that Luke gets to. He's like, this is perfect.
By the way, do you know when this issue came out in relation to the holiday special? Because it says strong holiday special planet vibes from the cartoon.
You're right. I don't actually know. I don't actually know what the vibe is there. But yeah, this I could see this being the same idea germinating into two different places.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, started coming out before the movie came out, and I believe the special came out 78, right? Thanksgiving, like a week before Thanksgiving, 78. So if you think about that, like the movie came out in May. So you go May, that's like 7 issues in 77 and then all the way to November, it's like, and this is issue 9. Like it could be in the mix.
Because it definitely has the same vibe of welcome to crazy, like water planet where we got weird creatures jumping up and creatures fighting creatures and people riding those creatures.
It's like sea dragons, and then also the enemy villain is like on a air carrier.
Yeah.
Like
well, we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. But
it's that planet though, right?
It's the same planet.
Yeah. It's like the next arc. And then Luke needs to like tell Leia fast because they can like track and triangulate where he is if he like broadcasts for too long. So he like tries to do it and he's like, it's Drexel, but then like the communication gets cut. And she's like, what the fuck was that? And so Leia goes to get Luke on Drexel.
Oh, damn it.
Dude,
Leia.
it's so interesting at this point in Star Wars. Because how like you're making fun of like how basically they got the situation going in Spoon of the Mind's Eye where they're like, they were flying and then, I don't know, shut up. Their ship crashed. They fucked up.
Yep.
Like you can get caught in hyperspace really easily. Ships crash really easily. And then everybody just like runs off to go find like things that you'd be like, all right, wow, let's really stop and think about this. You're the rebellion. You can't just go do this. But in this era of Star Wars across multiple mediums, they're like, fuck it. Shit just crash. Just go. It's
the 70s.
Story has to happen.
I don't think anybody cares. Yeah. It's Bosch, just bam, boom, zam. Leia goes to find Luke back on the planet. We learn that this is not going to end up being the Magnificent Seven when a guy who I believe is just an editor from Marvel Comics comes out. No, I'm just kidding. He's a elder from the village who's like, you don't need any of this bullshit. There's there's something in the cave that'll like take care of all of this. You guys are stupid. And everybody's like, what, dude? And he's like, fine, fuck you guys. And he like goes by himself. And the gang shows up and the battle starts happening. And the little boy, the Starkiller kids.
Yeah, that's what his name was. I thought it was like the Sundance. No,
I think his name is Jim.
No, it was Jim.
No, it was the Starkiller
he called
kid.
himself the Starkiller. It is also like Star-Lord, where it's like he gave himself that name.
Yeah.
It's like, did they know about Starkiller?
100%. They at this point they had to.
Well, because
where did they find out about it?
Starkiller was originally supposed to be
Luke's
last
Right,
name.
I get
and
it,
they changed it. So they probably
This
just
is
were like
this would be post movie, yes?
Yeah.
So they definitely, I'm sure that lore was out there. Lucas probably said something.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I guess. I don't know. It just seems weird that it's
But in in the interview with the guy, they were meeting about this years before. I think in 75 they were meeting about it, and they were just like Lucas. It was like in the middle of his like they were back then talking about 9 movies or like so much information that
and it turned out to be right. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, eventually.
Actually, there's more now.
Yeah.
And then so the dude and his robot both get aced. And then
no, Starkiller Kid doesn't die.
No, just the robot gets aced, but they get attacked and then the robot gets killed.
The robot's whole thing is like
Effie.
He's like, I'm not your robot. His like bit was like, I'm not your pet, man.
It was like,
do you remember that?
Like, yes,
it was like low key.
And he's like, and I do all the work. He was like a fucking I guess kind of like a Kato to the Green Hornet. Like
he was like pretending not to be his parent, basically.
But it's also because like the kid talked shit but didn't do anything, and then the robot's like, I'm not your pet, and also I'm the one that does all the fighting.
Yeah,
I don't really know what they were trying to say about Luke. I don't know if it had anything to do with Luke or what the point of that character was.
I think maybe it was supposed to be the flip side. It was like Luke, but
a bitch.
Yeah.
It made it make sense for Han in that he was like, fuck it, you're like Luke, I'll give you a shot. But there wasn't any like, I guess he went through the hero's journey because we find out like that was actually originally his town that he left.
Yeah.
And then he became a man from this journey. So
you find out that it's his own town. That's right.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's just it. I don't know. It's weird.
But then it starts to look bad for the crew until that old man comes through and the fucking monster bursts out of the goddamn ground and it just stops being about the Magnificent Seven.
It's
entirely.
just like Godzilla, right?
Yeah,
like, that's just
pretty
like,
much. It's a huge monster. Now we're in issue 10. It's just, for some reason, just attacking the bad guys and they're confused about that at first.
Because
no, I know, but they're like,
yeah,
how is this happening? It's just targeting the bad guys. And then,
you're right. Like, it's weird that they would just like say that out loud, but I'm like, oh, I guess because you don't have motion, you have to just like sort of say what's happening.
Yeah, you have to just say
people.
sometimes when it's a complex idea, and then the guy's like, see, I told you. And then like the end of this, just I guess so that they don't have to explain themselves. I don't really know. Sergei X
It's
Aragontis gets smushed by the foot of this thing, but also the old man who called the monster gets smushed by the foot at the same time.
Yeah, because they're all like, Serge, we should just like bounce. We're losing people. This isn't worth it. And he's like, no, it's personal. And then he sees that the old man's controlling it. So he swoops in, but then like the monster goes to get him and then kills them both.
Really quickly, for anyone who hasn't read any of this and you want to have a visual of what the monster's like,
Godzilla.
do you remember those old toys? Barely a toy, rubber things you would stick on your finger.
Yes, with the little arms.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's exactly what it looks like.
it is.
It's wild looking.
Disgusting little toys.
With his huge mouth, just like,
put it in my mouth and like roll around on the ground and get it out of a little vending
it's
machine.
a very 80s toy. It's
Horrible
barely a toy.
Horrible toy. But now we got this monster going haywire because the guy controlling it's dead. So they're like, well, they're not going to fucking pay us if we don't take out this monster. So Jax tries to like super speed it, but he like doesn't work. Ameza like has to save him. Hedgie shoots the quills. Nothing's working. But then fucking Don Juan Quixote, whose name I don't believe they spell the same way twice in this comic book, comes in and the lightsaber like calls the beam from the beast's mouth because it has like Godzilla breath.
It has like laser beams.
Yeah, it has like Godzilla breath. And so it like goes to the lightsaber for some reason.
It's like a lightning rod.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that scene. And then we get Leia is leaving to go find Luke. And then we're back on the planet. He tries to fight the beast. Don Juan Quixote does. He's too old and slow. And they try. Hedgie uses his quills, but doesn't work. Hedgie gets blasted, which sucks. I would have loved to know more about the Hedgehog Man.
I like the droid dying is like that kind of is expected.
Yeah.
Him, I was like, oh, wow. This has more like it's kind of like a fun comic. It seemed like pretty light. Like sure, the bad guys would get killed, but like I was like, oh fuck, all right.
But there are a lot of throwaway characters, right? Like
no, it totally makes sense. It just had to up to this point been so like fun and
Just
bloodless for the like heroes that I was like, oh fuck, all right, shit.
Yeah. And then so Hedgie gets blasted, and then Han and Chewie try to like go save Don Juan Quixote, and they end up like getting the lightsaber into the monster's chest, and it turns out the monster is like one of the vampires from Blade, and it just turns to dust and like blows away.
What they were saying was like the electromagnetic. They use a lot of like really
buzzwords.
Well, like the science fiction in Star Wars, the movies are like deflector shields or like tractor beams. And then here they're like the electromagnetic, it's like using our terms from actual Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it
makes it sound dumber.
It worse. Yeah. Because like, oh, it reverses the electric. You're like, stop.
No, that's not how it works.
Just,
that's
it's
science.
better if you just create like deflect, you just make up a new thing.
But
how about electromagnetic?
But I think they were falling back on what they know from previous comics they've written, right?
Yeah, no.
They weren't trying to expand new territories.
It's not like some Star Trek.
And I'm sure at the time that was a totally like appropriate thing. It's just now looking at it, it's like, the things that were completely fictitious, but that made sense for the universe fit better than when you were like, and they used a ray gun. They also call it like warp speed for like,
they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
Like
Ronald Reagan. And then you get this little thing, like we were saying, the farm boy, Jim, is like, I got to get off this rock. But then the girl that he saved earlier is like, actually, I'm attracted to the farmer instead of Han Solo.
Yeah, it was like a fake out.
Yeah, and Han's like, man. And they're like, they're driving off, and he's like, I can't believe I didn't get my dick wet, but it was pretty cool that I had a lightsaber. I kind of felt like a Jedi for a second. Isn't that cool, Chewie? And Chewie's like, you're gross, dude. But we don't know that because he speaks Shriwood. And then Chewie's woke, dude. It's crazy. I speak Shriwood. Then we're in issue 11. This is where the next kind of storyline begins. Han is like, man, that was so awesome. Maybe we should go see what Luke and Leia are up to.
Don't do it.
And they try to go to hyperspace, but when they get out of hyperspace, Crimson Jack shows up once again, and he's got his stolen Imperial ship that he's got now. It's like a stolen Imperial Star Destroyer that he's using, which is a crazy thing to steal.
It was so weird, but again, like I had to like
We don't know the power
remind
levels.
myself that this is like for me, like the idea that you as just like a random pirate would be able to like with how many people are needed to crew a fucking Imperial Star
it's just
Destroyer,
the power levels were not
size
set.
of it.
Nobody
the
knew.
idea
Yeah.
that you guys are running around like his crew, they like some of them are wearing Stormtrooper outfits, some of their ships are X-Wings, some of them are TIE fighters, some of them are like not anybody from Lucasfilm that designed those like flying saucers from a different universe.
From other sci-fi properties.
Yeah, it's like so weird, but then I'm like, oh wait, hold on. This supersedes all of the things that I think. So, you know what? This is a totally valid
yeah.
Right.
go as far as we know for this.
But it actually turns out okay because once he's on the ship, it turns out that like a while ago, Crimson Jack already grabbed Leia, so that's good. And then he's like, "Where's the rebel base?" And she's like, "I'm not going to tell you." And he's like, "Well, maybe I'll kill these guys. Maybe I'll torture these guys if you don't tell me. How about that?" And then he says, "Set your blasters to like burn them slow."
That
or
was the
something.
weird thing. Yeah, they have a slow kill settings
to
for
like
blasters
just like shoot like hot
to
lasers.
make it hurt. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like
Do you think that's like in Star Trek when the guy literally explodes? He's like, and then explodes. It's probably the same effect. It's just really
yeah.
slow and awful.
yeah, but in this case, it just means that
Do you say an X-Men?
Chewie.
In Star Trek,
Oh, I thought you meant when that dude, what's his name, Darwin in X-Men, like
oh yeah, no,
when he like absorbs everyone's powers and they like kill the one black guy in the movie for no reason.
no, I meant in Star Trek when they decide to vaporize that man, but instead of vaporizing him, he's
Oh,
like
he goes like
and explodes. It's
Yeah.
just crazy.
when Riker and fucking Picard shoot at the fucking the guys that took over the Federation,
yeah,
and it like makes that like
Yeah,
traumatizing explosion that I can like still see in my mind.
that's
same-
very practical.
Yeah.
it just
extremely
becomes like an
traumatizing.
X-Files shot for 1 second.
Yeah.
So then Chewie's like, "Fuck this, I'm invincible," and just like
Yeah, he literally has super armor against this.
goes in and just starts fucking people up. And then Solo's like, "Hey, I needed this. I came back because I needed your ship. Because I wanted to steal all the treasure from the rebellion. So I'm glad you're here."
Yeah, this is great. This is where I'm like, they write Han well, because it's like,
Crafty.
we followed you with the beacon. He's like, no, guys, come on. You think I'd be that dumb? I knew you. Like, he was like he does the whole like, I knew you guys put a tracker here and I need you. That's why I'm here. And that's why I think we're like Surgex or no, what's the Red Beard?
Aragontus? Oh,
No, the-
Crimson Jack. Yeah.
Crimson Jack, this is where this is where like they have a good little like, I could almost see them just being, well, I mean, we know what happens to him, but like,
Yeah.
they'd be like great rivals for years.
It's like I say, it's like
him and Lando. It's like another just
It's-
like other guy that he's like got a
it's
long history
almost
with.
Talon Card. He's almost like that. He's just not quite Star Warsy enough.
Yeah.
So then Han and Leia like kiss to like buy some time to like,
Yeah.
and this is when Leia says it's Drexel and that's where Luke is. And somehow Jack hears that, and then they go back to their cell, and then this is where we meet Jolly.
Oh,
We don't meet her for the first time, but this is the first time that Leia and Jolly
that
get
her
to
real
talking.
big arc. gets
And
to
Jolly's
come to
like,
the
"I
forefront.
hate men," and Leia's like, "Men aren't that bad." And Han is a great kisser, and Jolly's like, "Shut up! What
Shut
the
up! Why are you
fuck-
talking about that?
The fuck why did you put that in my mind? Shut the fuck up! Shut the hell up! No, that's gross. That's gross.
what sucks about Jolly is they give her
And then
like
the
the
rest of it-
beret and the whole look is just
She looks like women's lib, like college student kind of vibes. Like she's like a icy feminist that Han
hard
Solo's wrote. Yeah.
1970s. Like yeah,
She goes into the other room and she's like, "It's fire, hellfire." I don't even know if those are the lyrics to that song. It's
Close
like,
enough,
yeah,
baby.
from,
it's fire, hellfire. That seems wrong.
like
I think it's
fire.
like fire. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Leia's like, "But I miss Luke. Speaking of being attracted to boys, I wonder where Luke is." And then Solo and Jack are talking about Drexel, and Jax doesn't have like a full map somehow, even though he's on a fucking Star Destroyer. And so they're afraid to jump.
Oh, they're like in the outer rim again. Like they haven't really like explained
Yeah, exactly.
in,
They
in
just-
Star Wars yet, like how this works. So
I just had to assume that this makes sense in this other version of Star Wars that we're reading about. So he's like, "You know what? If you want, I'll like sink the Falcon's star charts with you, and if, as you know, Lando's robot girlfriend's in there. So,
God damn it.
just kidding. You know what's crazy though? She is in Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
What?
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Oh.
What a career. And also, I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but like, man, what a crazy. She's like in the two Harrisons.
Well, I mean, they're both like from the same production company, so that kind of makes it less.
I know, but
like
just
Harrison Ford's in both those.
you wouldn't be chuffed if you got in Star Wars and then you turn around and went into fucking Indiana
Yeah,
Jones.
I'm not saying like Cillian Murphy really nailed all those Nolan movies. Like, it's just
I don't think it is. She's like
I mean, you got Oppenheimer.
that's what I'm saying.
Hey.
Like,
I'm ready for Oppenheimer. All right, we're getting off track. So he's like, I'll sink him, and Jack's like, sure. And so he's like, but I'm sending my guards. And then it turns out Drexel's like an ocean planet, and Luke is like with R2 and C-3PO, and they're like on a spaceship that is like sinking.
they're stranded.
And
Yeah.
there's a water dragon coming towards them that they're fighting, and they're getting inside the ship, and they're gonna like shoot the escape pod out underwater so they don't have to fight the dragon. And they do it, and they get up to the top of the water again, and Luke like looks at his binoculars, and he's like, "Oh, is that another fucking dragon?" But then this one's got like a dragon rider on it, so that's like the cliffhanger of this issue. And then next issue, they're in the floating escape pod. The two dragons are now attacking the
Battle.
spaceship. Yeah. And it's like one is trying to salvage it, I think, and the other one is like trying to fight it, right?
Yeah.
And then these like little hovercraft boat thingies show up also, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And these things are like shooting the dragon. And so now Luke's like mixed up in the fight with everybody, and the guy who's riding the dragon has like a Dinotopia Aquaman staff
Yes.
that he uses to talk to the dragons. But then the Dragon Lord like shows up again and takes out the two boats. And then the last boat is left, and it goes over to Luke's escape pod, and they need like metal to fix the skimmers, because I guess it's like Waterworld vibes where like machines are
Literally,
very precious.
this world has some sort of jamming device that pulls ships from space so they can then like steal their shit.
yeah.
I mean, are we saving that explanation?
Oh, I mean, all right.
Yeah,
I guess
we'll get to that.
But that's why they're like, we need the metal. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like gonna take it, and the vibe is like Waterworld, where it's like we lost these, but we like need them, so we're gonna fix them. And they bring it up, and it's like, well, maybe these droids are like nice and metal too. But Luke's like, I will kill you if you touch me. He has his lightsaber, and R2 uses like, we make fun of Star Wars Episode 2 for the things that R2 is able to do in the droid factory and all that crazy stuff that happens.
In the original trilogy, he does a tasteful amount of shenaniganery.
Well, but in the Marvel comics, the shenaniganery, as you call it, from R2-D2 begins its nonsensicalness.
What's the actor that was inside of him?
Kenny Baker?
Okay. I thought it was Tom Baker, so I was going to do like
Tom
fake
Baker?
foolery. I was trying to do
The
like
doctor?
a tomfoolery, but no. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah. Tom Baker's the one with the scarf. The doctor with the big long scarf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just so we're all here.
Sure.
R2 does a like comedy oil slick routine. Luke has his lightsaber, and they are like, all right, fine, we'll take you to our boss. They get to a pirate ship that's like the size of the Empire State Building. It is like a Warhammer set. It's like a $400 Warhammer model.
Yeah, it's like they has like cool growth stuff on it. It's like a sick vibe. It's just very
From this point
weird
on,
from Star Wars.
from this point on, it becomes Pirates of Dark Water. If anyone
Straight
remembers
up.
that show,
The
it's
cartoon?
literally Pirates
Yeah,
of Dark
straight
Water.
up.
Yeah.
Was there a video game of that?
Maybe.
I think I played some kind of video game.
But
of that.
like the dude who's the governor, I wrote this note down.
Governor Quarg.
Governor Quarg is literally the pirate Bloth from Pirates of Dark Water.
literally. And does that match up? No, it's Pirates of Dark Water is a little newer.
Pirates of Dark Water was like
80s.
late 80s,
Yeah.
early 90s kind of vibe.
Yeah, it was definitely not on while I was a boy. And then so he's like, I love hanging people. Just so you know, I love hanging people. And he's like, I tell you what, let me talk to the governor. We're worth a lot. if you don't break us down and hang us. We have more value to you on your crew and as part of this situation than we would if you just took us apart. And then now Crimson Jack is also headed towards Drexel, and Jack's talking about how he like found the ship blasted while everyone was dead on it already, and then he was able to just kind of like walk on and take it. And then Jolly, so a call comes through and somebody tries to kiss Jolly, I guess. And so she starts shooting people on the ship. And then she hits Han because she's like, this is all because Leia told me that you're a good kisser.
Yeah, she was like, just because I was talking about kissing doesn't mean I want you to kiss me.
Yeah.
Which is,
like,
by the way, a totally fair... Talking about wanting to kiss does not give you consent
it's
to kiss.
To me more
but
the
just that, like,
premise is
that's
just
her
ridiculous.
whole, like, this is just all that there is to this character is the thought.
Haunted by the
Speaking
idea of
Nolan
kissing.
movies, like, he just incepted the idea of kissing guys as not the worst, just like broke her.
It's like a temporal pincer movement of kissing. But yeah, basically that happens. And then inside the Falcon, Chewie is like doing the like chart transfer or whatever. And they're on their way to Drexel and end of the issue. And then we find out that this thing that they're on in issue 13 on Drexel is like a pirate colony, basically. It's like literally it's like Waterworld. And Luke is showing them that R2 can like repair shit and be like, see, look how useful we are. Please don't hang us. And then the governor's like, well, if he fixed it, maybe you can go prove that it's like super fixed by like blowing some shit up in the skimmer and giving a little test. So he goes in and he like has no idea what's going to happen, but he gets attacked instead by like a guy whose job was threatened by AI, literally.
Oh yeah, it was like the guy that was the fixer for it is like, you can't fucking take my job, you
yeah.
guy.
So it like he almost crashes and then he throws the dude overboard and like I think something gets busted, like something like a piece of the wood gets busted. And so he comes back and Quarg's like, hey now.
But he still blows it up. He still like shoots the thing he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. So Quarg's like, now that's cool. So we're going to hang that other guy instead of you. And that's great. And Luke's like, that's fine with me for some reason. And then Luke gets to hear.
Don't they also have like a thought bubble where he's like, I'm really disgusted by it, but I'm going to play along.
I'm just going to benefit from it anyway.
To make it seem, to not ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, good.
Very, very Luke Skywalker.
The Jedi way.
Yeah. And so he tells him like, my dad was.
We know who you are, Wormy. You're gonna hit a girl.
Yeah.
Like
He was about to punch her in the face.
You were about to like sock her for just like nothing.
Yeah. For like talking shit.
For like being a little bit rough with your binoculars, but not even breaking them.
They're friends. Yeah. I don't know what the hell. So he's like, my dad used to be the governor of the Cortine asteroid belt and was wrecking starships to make money off the salvage. But then everybody caught wise to it. The Jedi came and they had to run to Drexel. And now we're doing the same thing here on Drexel.
Which, by the way, is sick because like that's the kind of thing I imagine the Jedi would be called in for. Like,
right.
I think this is like the first time we've like heard of the Jedi being referenced as doing something
like
besides like existing or dying, like a reference of them doing something. And it's like, yeah, these guys were like fucking people up. And then that sounds like exactly what you would send the Jedi in to do.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really know what George Lucas conceptualized the Jedi to be in relation to the Republic. Like,
I mean, just knights in general would do something like you would, send some knights there to go solve a problem.
I just mean in like in the context of the Clone Wars that he's talking about in Star Wars 4.
Sure.
Like, I don't know what he imagined the Jedi were to that. Like, I don't know if he thought they were like an actual military unit, or like, because they're literally called knights.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and even in medieval times, you wouldn't send an army. You'd send like a few knights to go, not even kill people, just to show up and be like, we are scary, watching y'all. Yeah.
But then turns out like some of the techs are like these dragon attacks that are being caused by you wrecking these ships. You have to stop doing this.
Oh yeah, it
causes like a schism.
the vibrations, because that's like the big thing in whoever's writing this' mind is like, yep, the magnetic vibrations that they used to like pull.
Bad vibes, man.
Yeah, like fuck with the dragons.
Yeah, so it creates like a schism, and some of the people become like dragon riders, and some of the people become like pirate guys. But then that doesn't matter because then boom, Crimson Jack's big ass ship shows up, and I guess the jammer from Drexel is like fucks up his electronics, and the artificial gravity begins to like let go, and then Han, Leia, and Chewie are like, should we just leave? And they do, and they get on the Falcon and they head out, and they go down there, and Quark is like, why hasn't this ship fucking crashed? And then turns out it's like
jack up the volume.
Yeah, it's just too big. Let's boost it. And so then because of that, or I don't know if it's because of that or not, actually, maybe because of the skimmer encounter earlier, but there's now an army of dragons headed towards the pirate ship.
I think it's implied.
It's because they've cranked up the machines to a level that unheard of before, which is why like every dragon is coming because it will kill them.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna hang you if you don't like go out there and help." And Luke's like, okay." And then the Falcon like also gets kind of fucked and crashes in like in between everything, and so now the Falcon's in the mix, and they're like floating, and Luke sees the like a boat shoot the Falcon, and he is like, I gotta kill these guys to save my friends. And turns out they weren't dead. Luke gets attacked by Chewie.
It's like, once again, because they're like the ragtag thrown together vehicles, the laser didn't have enough power to be lethal, right? Wasn't it like they got hit, but it wasn't lethal?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. And then Chewie thinks Luke's a bad guy because he's on a skimmer. And then they all just like get...
Dude, Chewie's like...
He's too
genocidal.
He's too scary in this.
He's like actual like...
He's like Wolverine when Wolverine like
when you
loses
like
it. Yeah. And then some big explosion happens, and then they are like all in a jail cell. Luke and Chewie and R2 and C-3PO are just like now all in a jail cell together. That's issue 13. Issue 14, they're in the brig, and Chewie is like still mad at Luke because he thinks that Luke was the one who attacked them. And Luke's like,
it's like crazy it lasts as long as it does.
Yeah,
it's
Luke's
so
like,
dumb.
what?
He's like trying to explain it to him, and then they do that thing that like was big in our high school where like somebody like goes behind somebody and like gets on their like back, and then you like trip him over it.
Yeah.
Is that like literally what they do to like get him? They like just trip him over like
literally yes
or something. And
literally
like,
yes. But
fuck, and then R2 shoots like the flame putter outer that like smothers him and like I guess just puts him to sleep and doesn't kill him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but the R2 antics just ratchet up. But okay, basically, there's the war going on. He tries to bring the Star Destroyer down. They need to get out of there though because the dragons are like turning on the hurt too much. Back on the ship, they're like finding that they're being jammed. Han Solo is being captured, but also he's being captured by the other side, the dragon guys. And Leia's still on the Falcon and is ready to be boarded, which is crazy because she thinks that Chewie and Han are fucking dead.
Yeah.
And then in the crow's nest, the governor's there and they're talking about why this is like, maybe we should like stop doing this and just use the Falcon parts that we got. And the governor's like, you know what? We need you guys to enhance the jammer. So unless you want to get hanged, you work your magic again.
The fucking captain guy was just like, everybody's like, we can't survive this. We should stop doing this. And he was just like, I'll fucking hang you. Like, that's like his like go-to maneuver for everything is just like.
So that like weird thing where they trip Chewbacca and then like spray him with sleep foam happens at this point. And then
is that when that happens?
That's when the door opens and they're like, the governor wants to talk to you. And now Luke is like hooking the engine of the Falcon to the jammer because I guess all technology is compatible with each other. And
I mean, this is early enough that who fucking knows?
You're right. Yeah. You're right. Han meets the Dragon Lords, learns about the sonic jammer being like the problem, And now the Dragon Lords are like, you need to help us take out the jammer. So now we got Luke helping out the bad guys and Han helping out the bad guys, or maybe they're good guys. And it's now like friends against friends. Chewbacca's sleeping in a fucking pile of foam. It's all fucked up right now. Nothing's going great.
Somehow still very pink, very pastel.
Yeah. And then Han shows up and Luke and Han fight over the ship for some fucking reason. And then
for like one page.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, we're actually totally fine. We're good.
So then the jammer starts to kill the dragons, which is crazy.
That's what the whole point was. Like, they have to shut it off because this is so powerful. It's going to kill every dragon
It's
on
too
the
high.
planet.
Yeah.
They cranked it to 11.
So Leia gets out and they start chasing Leia, but then that isn't a big deal because then Chewbacca finally, the foam wears off and now Chewbacca's like pissed and he's in the way of those guys chasing Leia. And then Luke and Han are fighting and Luke is like, Han, you're good. You just got to blow up the ship mast and we're good. This is all part of my plan. Like, I figured this out. And then they see Leia and they're like, oh, fuck. So they have to like go get Leia. And now Leia's like on the mast and the governor's got her. And then Luke fucking swings in like Errol Flynn.
Yep.
And they swing away and then Han just blows that shit up. Governor's dead. Sonic Jammer's destroyed. They all hang out.
This is like the start, because like once that happens, they're just like, and the fighting lasted until the next day. Like this starts like once they do the final objective, they then are like, they fast forward through all of the rest of the fight. They're like, and then they fought for a while, but it doesn't matter
Bing,
because
bong, bing.
you saw him like kick the guy off the mast.
Yeah,
So
bing, bang, bong. You got the cool thing. It's all over. And then Han Solo's like, yeah, but you know what? When we leave, we're just going to have to deal with the fucking Star Destroyer now. And Crimson Jack's up there still, and the Sonic Jammer is now dead. So it's starting to be a lot more of a threat up there. And like a genius, guess who Jack sends down to the planet to get Han?
Hell yes.
Jolly.
The best.
Oh, because like, yeah, it turns out like she was part of the reason that like Princess Leia was able to escape or something. And so
my thing
this
is just like, if you know that Jolly's so fucked up about Han at this point that she's like shooting her own crew for kissing her, like maybe don't send her down to pick up Han Solo. That's all I'm saying.
dude, though it's a common trope to be like, all right, you fucked up. This you have to prove yourself.
Right. So they're fixing the Falcon. They're trying to get off the ship. Jolly shows up in another one of those Y-wings, like the one from Splinters of the Mind's Eye.
Yep.
I don't know why everybody's flying around in these like slow bombing craft, but it's happening. And she doesn't sink the Falcon, but they have to like get to the controls of the ship before she can blow it up. And then I guess the laser shots that Chewie is doing with C-3PO and R2-D2 are enough to like get everybody safely aboard and get them out of there. They get to the upper atmosphere. More ships show up. They start fighting about stuff. Luke's like, I'm emo. I'm thinking about the Death Star. And then they keep trying to like kind of corral the Falcon towards the Star Destroyer. And
because they want to try to capture it in the tractor beam.
yeah, and then you find out that Jolly's parents were killed by TIE fighters.
Dude, yeah.
They give
I don't know.
They do a thing where like they give you her motivation right at the. It's like so weirdly put in to try to like explain something that you're like, because it was like, oh, what did her like father say to her? It was like
Don't
her
kiss
father
boys.
ditched them because they weren't like good enough.
Yeah, never trust a man, Jolly, and keep your eyes off their sexy little lips.
Well, and he was like, no, you're just gonna slow me down. Like you're not good. Like literally, he was something like you're not good enough, and then that was her motivation was to be the best.
Right, like a, I don't know. It's like the wackest storyline. It's like such a quick little scene.
It's put in like I think I laughed.
Yeah,
Like it's
Yeah.
like this is
It's
so
pretty
weird,
ridiculous.
and it comes so late. But
so she's trying to corral the Falcon towards the tractor beam. Han does some like sick flying and like scrapes her ship, and now she's like not safe anymore. She's like her ship's like woo, and
What was that? What is this shit?
and
I mean, they have like Tokyo Drift cool lines. Like it kind of is what it looks like.
Star Destroyer's Tokyo Drift in this damn
Dude,
thing.
now you're like, oh my fuck.
and the Falcon is spinning out of control. And Han Solo, Jack calls him and is like, "We got you now." And he's like, "Actually, you don't. I actually didn't swap maps with you. I erased all your maps, you dumbass."
Haha.
And so he's like, "You know what? If you want them back, I need you to give me what I need to get out of here and let me live." And then I'll
this
give you
seems
charts
like
back.
a interesting like concept for Star. Like, given now, you're like, oh, you can just erase their maps.
Yeah.
That's novel. But it also is like, yeah, you're out like in the outer rim. How the fuck are you gonna get back to anywhere? It's space. It's
And then
forever big.
pages after we learn about Jolly's like inadequacy complex.
Panels even.
Yeah, the next thing that happens is that Crimson Jack's like, "I'm not going to rescue you. If you're good enough, you'll get back to the ship on your own." And Jolly's like,
good enough.
Yeah.
All these men don't say that I'm good enough.
Yeah. And so then Han and Jack meet in like space, in like breathing masks.
A lot. I've read ahead, so a lot of Star Wars becomes people just chilling in space in breathing masks.
Hanging out in
It's
space. Yeah.
Crazy.
This and then the wheel especially reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. Like
Yes.
the casino episode there where they like do a deal in space in these and there's a giant thing. I was just like,
Crazy.
all right.
Yeah, it just keeps happening. But I guess there's no rules.
They kind of like explain it, or they like try to do that thing where they talk like, we meet this way so that we don't have any weapons, so we know that like none of us can double cross each other is like the vibe.
But yeah, so they're going to leave, but then he totally does. Jack totally double crosses
They both
Han.
bring weapons, like they both do the whole thing.
Yeah, so Han's about to be stuck out in space, but then Jolly like rolls in again in her busted ass X-Wing. She kills literally everyone. She blows up the munitions deck, leaves the only person in Crimson Jack's crew who is alive now is Jolly and Crimson Jack. And they are looking around on the ship for stuff, and Han's like, "You know what?" And like kisses her. And then
You kiss her dead body.
yeah.
It's like the worst.
Yeah. He's like, "You know what? Fuck it."
It's like weird. He's like, he just kisses her corpse at the end because it was like,
her what she always
I guess like in the writer's head, they're like, well, she wanted this.
It's fitting. Yeah, like
It
what a
doesn't
fitting
make-
ending.
It's so off.
It's terrible.
It's
Terrible.
like, if you think about what her story is, it is just like
It's like
embarrassing for all men on the planet who have ever written a comic book. Number 16.
yeah, it's like, oh,
It's not good.
So that's the end of that arc. Now we're in like a totally fresh, different arc, and where we meet Valance, who is
dude, it's like the cover is the Punisher. He even has a fucking skull on him.
yeah. Well, I mean, he's like the Punisher Terminator before the Terminator.
Yeah, or like actually like Cyborg Superman or
Yeah,
Hank,
yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
yeah, like he's like all of
Hank
that.
Henshaw.
It is like because like Frank Castle was like what, like an undercover cop. It's like
Yeah, something
Frank
like that.
Castle if he was like just a stormtrooper.
So he's he's attacking a medical facility because he wants to erase his own past.
Sure.
But when he's in one of the medical rooms, he runs into Don Juan Quixote. And
I don't even think it's not even him, right? Like some of his goons are like, "Yo, we overheard this old guy say something about this." And he's like, "What?" What? He's like,
Yeah.
"What did I say?"
So he's like telling him about all this stuff. So Valance is like, "I got to go kill those motherfuckers." And they blow it up. And
So that's a wrap on Don Juan Quixote. Is that the implication? Like,
I guess,
he blew up
yeah.
the whole, that's like an
I
official.
don't
death?
think he's going to show up in Rush Hour 3, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I mean, what they show him is like in a sick bed, like
I think he's
fever
like
dreams.
on the end of his, I think he's at the end of his life anyway. He's Don Quixote, man. He's like,
Don Juan Quixote.
yeah, well, whatever. You know what I'm saying. I think that's just an Obi-Wan joke. And then, so he decides he's going to go after Jax, the Lepus Carnivorous.
Oh, you.
And Jax and Ameza are still together, hanging out. And Jax gets ambushed while Ameza like steps away to get some gas. Or actually, I think the rabbit's getting gas, and he gets ambushed and tortured. And Daffy and Fudd are the two guys torturing the bunny, if
No.
you didn't notice.
That's what they. Oh, okay.
And
I get George Lucas's.
Why he was not feeling it? Yeah.
I don't know. If this motherfucker showed up in the current comics, I would be like, yeah. I love Jackson. I think he's awesome looking.
There's another character that he reminds me of.
Jazz Jackrabbit.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Then Amaza comes back, kills everybody, and she's like, yo, I guess she mentions it, Aduba 3, but she doesn't actually kill both of them, so like the information gets out.
The way that like the circumstances by which all this shit happens is so silly, but you just like gotta let it go, where it's like, yeah, they wanted to know and he didn't tell them. And so then she does well, it's a good thing we didn't tell him about this. And it's like, oh, that one guy.
Yep. Do you know what Jackson's spaceship is called?
Oh, the lucky.
It's called the Rabbit's Foot.
Oh, the Rabbit's Foot. Which, by the way, it is the outright, like.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it.
It's like the first knockoff, like Carillion, like it's not the Millennium Falcon, but it's like the Millennium Falcon.
You know, smugglers all ride flying saucers, right?
But this actually, I think, is the arc where they start doing ships that don't look like Flash Gordon. They start to look a little bit more
Star Warsy,
like actually. Like
I
Star
think
Wars.
they've now had some more time to like see some of the Apocrypha, right, and like kind of look at the models a bit more and kind of pick up the visual style more.
Yeah, maybe this is when the guy stepped, like the tone and everything starts to shift here, like darker and more adult.
Yeah,
I think
they're like, oh my god, this guy's gonna go kill Jim. We have to get back to Aduba 3 to like warn Jim. And Valance then has his like sort of flashback where he remembers he's like a decorated stormtrooper, and then like rebel torpedoes like blast his ass apart, and he's like so hurt from it that he like can't be a stormtrooper anymore, and so instead he tries to destroy his own past, and he sees a tape of the Death Star explosion,
right,
and he's pissed at Luke.
Gets like fucking radicalized.
Yes.
Again,
he's pissed at Luke because Luke loves droids and Valance hates droids. That's Valance's thing, is that he hates droids. And
oh yeah, but he now is like a droid.
That's kind of his.
It's like such.
He's kind of a neat character. And honestly, if you read Bounty Hunter, the like current Marvel comic, he's the main character of it most of the time, and he's pretty cool.
It's like a cool concept. It's a little bit like. It's like he's this and hates this. It's just it feels like a little bit like bullet points of a character and not super organic.
They change his backstory a lot more, like in the modern, and flesh it out into something that makes sense.
But his like level of badassness and like him coming in and killing people was like a sick. It reminded me of actually, you know how like the fucking you guys Buffy people at all?
I've seen it.
No,
like originally like the big bad was like a kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working, so they like brought Spike in.
Yeah.
And Spike just murders the kid.
Yeah.
Valance, because the tone shifts, he comes in and murders everything, and it's like
kills everybody in the
like
team.
I love like the energy that he brings. It's just that his backstory feels a little bit like you were rushed to make your D&D character. Like you're like, oh, I forgot to do my homework. I'm this and this and this.
Honestly, it's 70s comics. Like nobody's origin story. Like literally, Batman is like, I would be a Batman. Like, I don't know. And that was in the 30s, but still. So they fight in space, but the Rabbit's Foot crash lands, and Valance's crew is like sweeping for survivors, which is crazy. But then Jim shoots his gun in the air, and the Banthas stampede, and only Valance is left alive, I think, afterwards.
Yeah, they do a pretty sick like trick. Like, well, they have like more firepower, so we just gotta like get them overconfident. And good thing Banthas are so plentiful
everywhere
across the fucking galaxy.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, wait. So maybe that's what the whole point of Jim is. So he finds out that he gets captured. Valance does, but then he realizes that the guy that's on Aduba 3, who's the farm boy, is actually not Luke Skywalker and is in fact Jim. And he actually like laughs at it in a crazy way.
It's hilarious because he's like, I fucking went through all this for nothing. Whatever.
And then he has like, he reveals that he has like a Mega Man gun and that he's a cyborg. And that's why he hates droids and yada, yada, yada. So now we have a Star Wars arm cannon, which is awesome.
That was sick because the implication was like, he probably could have killed them all more, but then once he like learned that it wasn't him, he just got out and was like bummed that he had to like reveal himself.
Right, exactly.
But it was like, I don't know. That was like a sick way Because we don't see him again in this, right?
No. Do you think
You don't like him?
Mega Man, just like,
I think a lot of things come from these Star Wars Marvel comics. Like,
because
It's-
he's got kind of the outfit too.
He has the Blue Bombers
Yeah.
armor and
Yeah.
the stuff.
and he's a Terminator, kind of. Like there's just a lot of things going on.
It's weird to guess because like maybe, but everything also like Dune inspired Star Wars. I feel like Star Wars inspired.
Everything
what's
is just.
the Ghibli movie we just watched,
Nazca.
and that like inspired a bunch like Metroid. Obvious, like I don't know, everything just like kind of in.
It's all postmodern. We're all cribbing off each other at this point anyway, but it's just interesting to see like these sort of like lines that you can maybe draw.
Yeah.
Because these were popular fucking comics.
But like, also think about like, I realize like I've had like, longer hair for a lot of my adult life. And looking back, my favorite people were like Tommy from Power Rangers. Like I look back and you're like, fuck, that's why I thought it was cool. This is the time that maybe like a young, who I guess.
Don't you think?
And if I didn't like design him, right? Like, but like if this came out in the 70s, this could have been exactly like the thing that inspired the person that designed him. Like, the timing lines up.
The police station scene in Terminator?
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of like the hospital scene in this comic book? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of in the zone. So then Luke has like a flashback while he's on the Falcon in issue 17. He's piloting, he's flying a land speeder and shooting womp rats while flying it with a gun and steering with his other hand, which is like, to me, the craziest sport that I could think of.
It was weird, but then I was like, okay, well, hold on. This is like nowadays, like, your Disney hero doesn't just like kill animals. So it was like a little weird. I was like watching him like murder animals and I was like, oh.
He's hunting.
But then I guess they did point out like that because we know that moisture farming is regular farming just with way less water. I think they have a line about how like they will destroy the entire yield if they don't do it. So I was like, okay, but yeah, him doing like trick shots was like weird.
He talks about it even in the movie.
But he was talked about doing it in the T-16.
Still.
So it was weird to see him in a land speeder doing
What's the difference shooting with a gun?
It's
or
almost
with a spaceship?
unfair.
Yeah, it's like worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes back to the homestead in this flashback. And he's trying to get permission.
AC-130.
Yeah.
It's like killing a gunship. You're like
Shooting a deer.
I
with
guess
a
that's impressive.
grenade.
You're really cool, Luke.
So he's trying to get permission to go to Biggs's goodbye party. And Owen is like, yes, but it's only because Baru's like, didn't you always regret never saying goodbye to Luke's dad?
Dude, yeah, this issue was sick.
Yeah.
Because this also reminded me like the Obi-Wan one-offs from the new ones.
Yes.
Like a little adventure. This also gave us like our only bit of extra Owen information. Like the idea that he was like pissed because Anakin left without saying goodbye. That bit of information to me, we now know from what happens in the prequels, they had no relationship whatsoever.
Right. It explains, yeah.
But you're like, man, in the world where Darth Vader and Anakin aren't the same person, like, wow, was Owen a much more important person? Like in the prequels for that story, was he a much bigger character? And like, I think the idea of like, no, just do the quiet life. Don't go get involved in the galaxy. It just like,
I think the vibe in my mind was that they were best buds, and then he left and he stayed.
And he's like angry and bitter.
Not even like angry, just like he now doesn't want Luke to leave because he cares about Luke also, and he doesn't want Luke to go die in a war again also. You know what I mean?
He's like so bitter about his brother leaving that he like doesn't. He kind of like weirdly takes it out on Luke, but he loves him so much. Like it's like a weird abuse.
He doesn't want the same thing to happen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's like from a place of love. I don't know. It's a thing where like, it doesn't matter because we now know that it's not important to the story. But back then you're like, oh, I'm sure at this point in time, there was a totally different backstory for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. So then Baker's Canyon, there's like a race to get to the nest of Womp Rats, and Biggs like totally outflies Luke. But they are partying, and then a land speeder rolls up on fire. And they're like, yo, the fucking Tuskens got guns and they're headed towards Anchorhead and they're going to like blow up all the farms in between here and there.
Does this not totally remind you of like shot of like movies where they're like hanging out by like the reservoir, like drinking beers.
Party at
they're
the
just
moon
like
tower, bro.
they're just like kicking it. It's like, and then
And then Luke's like, but that would lead him back home. And so he goes and literally this party is like turns into like a hunting party for Tusken Raiders. They're like drinking and partying, and then they like go start shooting the natives. And the communicator is like not working properly. So they try to get to the Skyhoppers to like spread the word like Paul Revere. But they go to the Skyhoppers and they get attacked by a Tusken Raider, and it hits Biggs in the shoulder. And I guess the vibe is that those gaffy sticks have like scorpion venom in them because they kind of look like scorpion stingers. So now Biggs,
he said it was like coated in it.
sandbat venom.
Yeah.
So he's now poisoned, and Luke, they're in there, and they have to like get there fast, and there's like some crazy thing where they have to go through Diablo Cut to get back.
Yeah, basically it's like the only way to get him back in time is to take a shortcut, but no one's ever survived
nobody's ever
Diablo
done it.
Cut.
And so Luke does it, and on the other side, the Tuskens are there, and they're like, "What the fuck?" That's where they came through, and they get past, so it's all good, and they just like get a little pot shot on it. So they crash land, and like they use the sand as like a soft landing, and Biggs needs to get help, and Owen like comes out to help, and they alert the militia. And back in the Falcon, Luke's like, "Wow, that was crazy," and Han's like, "All right, my turn to fly," and Luke's like, "I love flying."
It was a cool. This is like a really sick issue. I liked it a lot.
But it was like very straight to the point. There wasn't anything like crazy in this. There were things that fleshed out other characters that at the time would have been super interesting, but like it wasn't as batshit insane as the things we just came from.
No, it was like, that's why I'm like, this arc shifts toward like a different tone for it.
Right.
But this like felt like a very not outlandish focus because it was one issue story. The only thing that was weird to me is like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru got like character readers. Like they just didn't look like
Right. Like the actors.
Beru was like young and hot. Like a totally like her
It's a
hair
flashback,
was
bro.
You got to sell comics, dude.
Hey man, it's a flashback, bro.
Yeah, and then Uncle Owen was like just had like way more. He just was like a different guy.
To me, this was like the type of issue that you put out when you know you got an ongoing now that's like gonna be around for a while, so you'll take some time to like do a little dumb little Skyhopper story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's that issue, and the next issue is number 18, The Empire Strikes. So issue 18 is the Falcon flying through hyperspace back to Yavin after all this shit's gone down, and 3PO is like, Han and Leia need to come here. Turns out Luke was training, and he was trying to meditate, and he wanted to go deeper into the Force, so he concentrates so hard that he just goes unconscious into some sort of
Trance.
coma state, trance state. And they're like, what the fuck? We got to get this guy to some medical attention. But then like the navigator drifts.
This is another thing where like, yeah, he was like, oh, darn it. I forgot that the navigator was drifting, meant to tighten the screws. Oops.
Very Splinters of the Mind's Eye.
It's just like, they're like, who fucking cares? Here's where we are now.
But this is where it gets good because there's a merchant ship with house tag markings, which is great because we now tag as
got
like
tags.
Yeah, the tag. God,
It honest to God, I know what it's supposed to be. I know we're supposed to care.
Yeah,
but it sounds like a clothing line.
House of
like
Tag?
The House of Tag.
yeah.
It sucks. I
Those
hate the name.
Balenciaga.
Yes,
AI ads.
the Tag family.
But there's Chewie sees a rebel out there, so they get him. And just before the rebel dies, he's like, "This is a fucking false flag operation. They're trying to make it seem like the rebels attacked." Ugh. So now this rebel is like evidence, and they got this situation going on, and a light cruiser comes out of nowhere, and Commander Strom is on there, and they chase the Falcon, and it turns out that they're right next to something called the Wheel, which is a floating casino thing, kind of like Lando vibes. But
is this the first, and I like Cowboy Bebop does it, the like giant roulette spaceship casino thing? Like, I feel like this.
It kind of looks like the thing from 2001 a little bit.
Well, because like it has that like what in the old sci-fi, like to simulate gravity,
Yeah.
it's always got to be whatever. But it is isn't it like a giant roulette wheel?
I'm looking this up. I feel like you might be right. I don't know that I've seen something earlier than this that has that. It's a casino in space.
Yeah.
And it's a roulette. I don't know.
Right. It's like even going to be in like Cyberpunk 2077 almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this thing's called the wheel, and Leia knows what the wheel is and was like, my father didn't like the wheel. Well, I didn't
Which
want
father?
Yeah.
Organa or Bale Antilles?
Jimmy Smits. And he was like against the wheel being built because it's a casino and la 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 la.
It's like a neutral, it's a giant, it's like a casino of casinos. Like it's like a bunch of casinos on this station, but I guess it's a neutral thing. The Empire isn't there, but the secret is that it like pays for a lot of the
right.
Empire stuff. It's like a huge revenue stream for them.
Yeah, so they crash in the hangar because they're kind of winged, and Chewie wants the rebel body. Leia's going to go with Han, and the droids are going to try and get Luke to the med bay. And the stormtroopers interrogate the wheel guard to be like, where did the rebels go? And the wheel guard won't talk. And it kind of brings into the concept the fact that the wheel is like outside of the jurisdiction of the Empire, even though it's run by a man called Senator Greyshade, who is like an evil wizard who's in the Imperial Senate.
It's a great, like, Grima Wormtongue, Greyshade. It's just a good villain name.
Yeah, and he has this like head of operations pit boss type robot called Mastercom, who is a sweet man, and
really goes on a much more fleshed out journey than poor Jolly got.
Yeah.
Okay. Update. Big time update.
Okay.
Now, you might think, is this the first one to ever appear? More than 10 years before.
Oh, shit.
Tom and Jerry.
Yo, what?
Space Station 1. There's a series of 3 Tom and Jerry episode shorts where it's in the future. And Tom and Jerry, there's a robot cat. And the space station literally looks like a roulette wheel.
Whoa.
Is that the first one?
That's the first one I can find right now, but I'm sure there must be earlier ones if that exists.
Yo.
It completely lends itself to that because, like, it's spaceship design. It's just
That's
great.
the image right there is the space station.
Oh my God. It looks just like the wheel. Yeah. It's hilarious.
All right. Damn.
So basically, then So now the senator.
Hence the term copycat. Okay. All right, bye.
Tom and Jerry.
Stupid.
So he tells him that these guys docked without paying the docking fee, and he's like, "Who the hell are they?" But then he gets a call from Strom, and Strom is like, "Yo, here's the skinny. These rebels attacked the tag ship, stole the wheel profits that were on there, and now you got to take out the rebels, and now you got to team up with the Empire to do it. So like we're buddies now, so you should work with us." And the senator's like, "All right, kill all of them, but bring one of them to me alive." And Strom's like, "Okay, yeah, but real talk, I'm just gonna kill them all." And the medical troopers get to R2 and C-3PO, and they have Luke Skywalker, and they're like, "We're gonna kill you." And then Mastercom sees this, and he also sees Han and Leia heading towards the upper decks. And Senator Greyshade's like, "Ah, Princess Leia, my loveliest adversary." And Mastercom, he's like, "Go get her, bring her to me." And that's like the sort of cliffhanger for that issue. Then we're in the med bay, and C-3PO and R2-D2 are with Luke, and they're staring down the barrel of the gun. And the stormtroopers are ready to shoot, and R2 hacks into the security systems just quickly and closes a blast door between them. And the stormtroopers shoot the laser guns. And
dude, this is wild. They like roast them. It's like a violent image.
Yeah, he locks them into a like how the trash compactor reflects bullet like lasers.
Yeah.
So in there, they just shoot themselves to death basically inside this little door.
Yeah.
And so
the image though is like them just poke. It's
a pretty cool little. This comic actually, this is where it starts to become
this arc is like I was like this. I really enjoyed not just from like an ironic standpoint. I was like getting into it.
Yeah, no, I'm
not
telling
ironic,
you.
But like,
remember my 5th grade dirt clump situation? It's not that it is Star Wars. It's not that it is proper Star Wars as we know it. It's that it almost is. It's like a half-formed clone of Ellen Ripley in the tank. You know, it's like almost there.
What happens here? like the idea of being like a false flag operation is so much more serious and like
The premise
forward thinking than the other things that have happened.
The
in the comics.
premise
like,
is
it's
a
just
Star Wars
very,
premise, yeah.
like mature.
But again, I wonder about the date of publication versus the previous ones. You know what I mean? Like the closer we get to Empire, the more I guess everything is sort of fleshed out, the more they kind of understand where the series is going, the more they know what these characters are going to be and how the universe works versus like.
So this issue was published in October of 1978. So Empire was in 1980. So like,
there literally is an issue coming up called The Empire Strikes.
yeah, we already passed that one. Yeah.
Right, but like that couldn't have been a coincidence if they knew.
Yes.
Like,
Or it could be the opposite.
That Empire Strikes on
The Empire
they were
Strikes.
like, actually, this is title is a direct sequel to that comic.
Well, we know
George Lucas is
Lucas
like, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you know Lucas is reading these comics for quality at least. If I made Star Wars and there was a fucking worldwide bestseller comic strip based on my fucking shit, I would be reading it. So maybe he picked it up from there. I don't know. It's 1978. Anything could happen. McWorld. So then one of the things that's kind of discordant about this is like, why would a senator be running this casino? That seems so not how it works in Star Wars.
I don't
They all
know.
have business
Yeah.
stuff. I'm pretty sure there's probably senators that have gambling connections in America.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's the one thing that doesn't feel Star Warsy about this is that there's like a senator outside of Imperial jurisdiction running a casino. You'd think that he would be an Imperial lifer, right? I don't know.
Yeah, although didn't he say he's not actually senator anymore? Because he's like,
Right.
I like to be referred to by my old title.
Right.
So I think does that not fix it for you? Like, did he
I'm not.
is a
I have
retired senator?
It's not like niggling at me. You know what I mean? It's not bothering me. It's just
It gives him a connection to like Leia.
something about
Yeah.
Senator Grayshade just is like not quite this as now we're in Star Wars as the rest of the stuff. And honestly, it's more the
But
premise.
the Pirate Man was a governor, so you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
the premise,
it's all over the place.
I would say the premise of this is more like Star Wars than the actual, like the narrative that it plays out. Because
Sure.
the next thing that happens is that Grayshade and Mastercom are like watching them on security cameras, and while the senator is like obsessed with Leia, Mastercom is like, these droids, they're so cunning, they care so much. That's so crazy. And so Han and Leia are fighting.
Especially that they care for their master so much.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to that. So Han and Leia are now fighting stormtroopers in the hangar bay. Leia is like, why did you tell us to come here? And Han's like, the wheel is supposed to be like safe. And
That's a legit.
Yeah.
and
I don't know. They told me they fixed it.
So the wheel security shows up, kills the stormtroopers. They take Leia to see Grayshade. She recognizes who he is. Han stays with the wheel guys, and then in another part of the wheel, Chewie has just gotten rid of this dead body that he was carrying around and is on his way to the Crimson Casino. And he's hiding away from stormtroopers, and he gets to the casino, and then he gets grabbed by the wheel security because he didn't pay the docking fees. But you can't arrest a Wookiee very easily, so he takes out the security, and he takes out some kind of bouncer giant. I think he's called a Mandalorian. I don't know.
The Mandalorians.
Yeah.
From Mandalia.
Yeah, Mandala.
Mandalia.
Mandalorians from Mandalia.
It reminds like it's like proto Mandalore. Like it's like so close that it's just like, was this just when you're coming up with names? Sometimes you come up with a similar one, or what?
Maybe.
So then they do the ray gun equivalent of filling Chewbacca with like 1 million trank darts, and he goes down, and they like make him into a gladiator for the gladiator pits, which I guess is part of the casino.
Welcome to the arc of gladiator combat in Star Wars.
Dude, this happens all the goddamn time.
It really does.
Back on the ship, Han's like pissed off because they're taking his ship apart. He's like, there's nothing here. Like, stop ruining my ship. And then Leia explains to the senator about the frame job, and Mastercom's like, Strom is on his way here, but then Strom shoots him, I think. And
oh yeah, that's how we first learned. Like, he's got multiple bodies. He's actually the computer,
right?
But he was given a body to fucking have it.
Yeah, he's like an Ultron-esque intelligence. And then he tells them that he threatens both of them, but then Mastercom comes back into the room and takes out Strom again. Because
It's kind of a sick moment.
It's pretty cool.
Gray Shade is tight. I actually really like Gray Shade because then he's like, relieve him of his weapon or whatever. Like, he's just like, he like is cool and calculated the entire time.
he's like, now let's go talk. So they're talking, and Gray Shade's like, I know you want to frame me. And he's like, tell you what. This is like the opposite of Jolly. He's like, tell you what. I'll let you frame the rebels if you let me marry Princess Leia, because I've got it bad for Princess Leia. I don't care about anything else in this life. I just want to fuck Princess Leia.
Yeah, he's like, what? Like, everything to me comes easy. I have no problem getting it. It's the one thing that I can't get.
So
I want.
the reveal is that he loves her. And then Luke is in the med bay
It is
again.
like the inverse of Jolly.
Yes.
Luke is in the med bay again. R2 like faked his records. Security shows up, and you find out that Han Solo actually pawned the droids so that he could have money to gamble, which is hilarious. They like show up and they're like, "You're ours now." And they're like, "What?"
There's a fucking great. There's some great like lines in here that feel way more modern, and like they get some good droid bits where like C-3PO is like mid like, "You fucking idiot, you can't. Oh, you did this and you did this. I fucking love you, dude." Like they just have like great moments that are like, all right, they like totally got their dynamic.
I love that. Yeah, C-3PO and R2-D2 are actually like not annoying. I don't know why people don't like them that much. I know C-3PO.
Prequels. The 100% the prequels.
The prequels, they become like a different level of shtick that's not funny.
Maybe it's because they're kids.
And they just want Jogan fruit all the time.
Does that count?
What?
C-3PO's just been born. I'm gonna rescind that. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back. In the gladiator pits,
you were like workshopping it live, and you don't like
it's okay.
it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm jumping it. I'm jumping ship on that one. Chewie's alive. He's up. He's beating the shit out of people in the gladiator pits, and then he can fight in the big game, or he can go to Kessel.
Big
I guess sending
game.
Wookiees to Kessel has been a thing for a long time. Back in the Crimson Casino, Han is trying to win money to bail everyone out and pay his docking fees. But he just fucking loses. So he's like, you know what? Maybe I'll go for the big game too. So
it's weird how much of these comics is like, I guess because like Obi-Wan's out of it. Han is like kind of the leader. He has to like do the most, like
he's the grease man.
Figuring out the logistics for the family trip.
But I think this goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, where Lucas was like, do not expand upon Luke and Leia.
You can't touch it.
So it was like, all right, this is Han's running the show.
Well, that was what he was saying. This arc sort of does what he said he couldn't do, which was like Vader comes into this run and more Force stuff happens. So I feel like by this point that decree is less, but definitely it makes sense for the rest of it that it's like, yeah, they can only pine, like him and Leia can only pine after each other, and they can't go any further than
that. They're 100% in pre-production for the Empire Strikes Back, so I guarantee they have.
I don't even know if they knew for sure that Harrison Ford was coming back for the movie at this point, right?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. I guess before we get into Empire, I'll do some more digging into that. Issue 20, though, the charade continues. An X-Wing now is attacking the pleasure cruise that came out of the wheel, so then they send TIE fighters after it. And everybody sees this happen now. This is like a very visible event. Everybody on the wheel can actually see it out the windows and stuff. And Leia is now having dinner with Gray Shade. And he is like, what? He's the guy that's in the room with him is like, why are you going along with this? Like, you know this is fake. Like, what are you doing? And I think he kills him, right?
Yeah.
But Leia is able to steal a knife during everything that's happening. So now Leia has a knife. And Gray Shade goes talk to Strom on the ship, and they're going to talk about like the new like Empire wheel fusion that's going to maybe happen. And Gray Shade's like, I want to stay as the boss, but there are a few casino owners that are a little too woke for my tastes. And so he's going to throw them out. And Luke is still comatose in the med bay. Han and Chewie are getting ready to gladiate. C-3PO and R2-D2 are about to be wiped and erased and melted down.
Yeah, because the whole thing was like, Strom the whole time was like, just fucking kill him. And he's like,
Yeah.
please, you've got no taste for the arts. And
Yeah.
aren't they like drugging Luke at this point?
Yeah, they're literally drugging him. And Han and Chewie are in like a placement. Like when you play Street Fighter.
Preliminary.
Like when you play Street Fighter and you find out what your rank is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Han finds out that he's ranked like crazy high for some reason, even though he's just like a dude.
Dude, he is like on the level the entire time where he's like, there's no fucking way I'm in like S tier.
Yeah.
You liar.
So he comes out.
I'm like,
he's
oh, come on, you're stronger than you think you are.
He's like, I mean, I know Terras Kasi, but what that can't do much in the face of a guy who's basically Goro.
who's like poison bone Goro.
Yeah, poison bone Goro doesn't sound good. So he hits him in the face, but it makes him mad, and then Han gets kicked once and goes flying. And
This has like an Indiana Jones
100%.
like it's a fun like action comedy fight.
And C-3PO and R2-D2 are about to get their memories wiped, but then Mastercom shows up and like takes them away, and they go to medical bay. And Mastercom is like, honestly, the thing that's really just like warming my heart about you guys is how much you care about this Luke guy. It's so crazy. I can't let this bullshit happen to you because you love this guy so much. It's just
Yeah, he was like, I asked permission to like look into you, and he didn't say no.
Yeah,
so
I've
technically I can do this.
Yeah. So they get to the med bay, but they find out that Luke is now gone, even though that's impossible. And then Mastercom gets like a buzz from the tower that he needs to go back. Leia's there. She has her knife. She used it to rewire the door panel to get out of there. And Mastercom's like,
there's so much in Star Wars, people just like fucking grabbing like wires and
Mastercom's like, I have to go, but like, take care of yourselves. I love you. Watch out.
My people need me.
C-3PO's like, we may have made a friend today, R2. And R2's like,
I was not prepared. I thought that the comm guy looked cool. I was not ready for like, I was like, oh, he's back. Oh, he's like a part of this.
Yeah.
All right.
So then C-3PO and R2-D2 like look up and see Han Solo on a TV now. And they're like, oh shit, there's Han. And he's like almost going to die, but then he gets lucky because he like throws a shield at the dude, and the dude like trips on the shield and like poisons himself by accident.
And like, his weapon has like no, like they gave him like a mace, and of course it has like no charge in it, right?
Yeah, he just like hits him in the face with a mace, and the guy gets pissed, and that already happened. And then now he throws the shield, and the dude just like poisons himself.
Trips on himself, yeah.
And the senator's like, what the, how is this guy alive? Like, what the fuck is happening?
S tier, dude.
Yeah. And then next issue, Leia's now in the executive suite, which she's been stuck in, and she runs into one of the guards, but she like tricks him and takes his gun, and she stuns him, and now she's on her way because Leia's a badass.
She does a great like, oh, help me. Fuck you. I got your gun. Shut the fuck up.
And then we find out what happened to
It's like a very...
You're entirely right. It was straight up that meme like, call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah, exactly.
It is so... They were like, this is what I'm like, there are moments of like what feel like modern comedy, like just good bits in there.
It's vibes.
I love Leia in this. Just kick ass.
So we find out that Luke in his mind is like running through the stars, and he runs into Obi-Wan, who's like, stop running, dude. You can't run. You have to like face your destiny and fight. And Darth Vader's there, but he can't do anything. It's like exactly like the cave. It's like a similar.
There's a lot. I mean, the whole situation with Leia and the senator, and just like the beats of this feel very Empire.
The fucking droids being like taken on the ship, Chewie showing up and like grabbing C-3. Like there are so many moments where you're like, this is like proto fucking Empire.
They're
it's
still
called Empire Strikes. Like,
I'm telling you, dude. What if he just read this? But the point is.
We know he did read it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what if he just like took the ideas? I don't know. But Luke like realizes he needs to like look inside himself. I don't know. It's not quite the Force either. It's like the Florce. It's like
it is like the proto like the idea of meditating in this is like, I heard that there is a way to like meditate, but you don't need like real Jedi don't need to do it, but like to do your connection. And now like meditation is just part of what all Jedi do with the Force. But like it's like him in space. It's like not as cool. The cave is definitely a much cooler, like visual metaphor.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also him in space would be impossible to do in that period of time. Like,
It would have looked like shit.
Yeah.
But actually, Paul Atreides, but that was a little later.
They could have, I mean, who knows? Like,
but they made this space look beautiful and weird and stuff.
But like you're thinking about effects back then, but before they did Star Wars, nothing looked like Star Wars.
Even worse, yeah.
True.
If you look at Empire, that's like the how much crazier and bigger Empire is.
It's Star Wars with money.
Is insane. And then the fucking in Return of the Jedi in space, you're like, how do you guys keep doing this?
Return of the Jedi is like an achievement. It's like a benchmark of special effects.
The last 25 minutes of that movie are insane for the time.
Better than a lot of movies look now. Like
I thought I was watching the special edition one time, and I was just watching the real movie.
Yeah, like they could have probably done it in a cool way.
So I guess what happens with the Force here is that he digs into his soul, and while he's digging into his soul to beat Vader in the dream, he like wakes up and like has super strength to like get out of his restraints, and he goes into like a fugue state.
Also, wasn't the only reason that he got in the coma was because both ships were in hyperspace near each other, so they're like brains connected.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then he got scared.
Yeah.
It's a weird
but he
force connection thing that is picked up on many times later in Star Wars.
A dyad.
Yeah, and what makes it a lot less cool is that he like overcomes his fear by like punching, like it's just an uncool punch out with like spiritual Vader instead of a sick ass lightsaber fight.
Well, you find out that Luke has like taken out a bunch of people on the wheel, and he runs into Leia, and he's like, Darth Vader's alive and he's looking for us, which is
you just see you see him like standing there, dead bodies everywhere and a lightsaber, and it's like, oh, I guess I took him out.
Yeah.
Which is like a cool way for him to have done an incredible feat of strength that he hasn't canonically been able to do in the movies yet.
That's what I mean. Like, they don't know, like, do you black out when you use the Force? Like, they just don't know, right? So it's just kind of a new thing.
In fucking Split of the Mind's Eye, maybe you become Obi-Wan. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, he's like, I am Ben Kenobi, and Vader's like, what?
Oh, what?
But speaking of Vader, Vader is on Ultar,
dude,
and he has his army. And
he's on Hawaii. This image is like so. It's like a really cool image of like Vader in the Hawaii.
Jungle. Yeah,
I love the visual. I've never seen
on the
him.
island from Lost.
I like want a poster of this. It's like sick.
He is on. He's just conquered a rebel base. And he finds a survivor, and he actually didn't destroy the base himself. He finds a survivor, and he's like, who did this? And they're like, it was Valance looking for Luke. And Vader kills him, and he gets a call from Captain Wormus, which is a hilarious name, from a Star Destroyer. And he's like, we felt a disturbance on the ship headed in the direction of the wheel. So he's like, I guess I'll go to the wheel too. So we're back at the wheel. Master Comm is like, hey, Leia escaped. And he's also like, yo, I was studying the droids because you said I could do it by not saying that I couldn't do it. So that's why I wasn't there. So sorry, I just really like their friendship. It's like a big deal to me. But then Gray Shade is like pissed at it. But then Master Comm is like, but like, if I had a friend like how those guys like Luke, you would be my friend. And
because you gave me a body.
Yeah, I love you. You're like my best friend. I talk to you all the time. And Gray Shade is like, get out of here.
He's like, go fucking do your job.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
He's like, what the fuck? He's like, what the fuck? And so he goes back to Strom. They're watching the big game. And the light cruiser that's up in space right now that got attacked by the X-Wing, Gray Shade security team goes on there, kills the crew that's on there, takes the money, which the Empire stole. Luke and Leia watch this happen. R2 records it, which proves that the thing wasn't really the rebels.
Mm-hmm.
And in the pits, Han Solo's like getting healed because he has like his ribs broken and shit. And he's about to like deal with this and pay all his debts and everything. And he goes into the zero gravity arena and finds out that he's got to fight like amongst a bunch of bruisers. Chewbacca is also there now. And he's like, shh, fuck. And that's the sort of cliffhanger of that one. And then they fight.
The fucking cover art was like a friendly duel to the death of
straight
friends.
up,
and you're like,
Yeah, it's straight up the Star Trek, like, bro. It's that. It's
Yeah.
that.
This issue is called To the Last Gladiator, which is a great name. So they got to be the last man standing. Han finds out his blaster doesn't work and that there's like traps everywhere that are pretending to be decorations, which he hates. And so he starts to...
Yeah, they're like planets, because they're doing like a 0G fucking Ender's
It's like
Game,
blitzball shit,
simulation, but for real. It's like you die and things explode.
So Han is like using shields to deflect lasers. Chewie saves Han. Chewie finds out his gun doesn't work either. So they're like, we got set up, didn't we? And he's like, no. And Han he like blows up a trap, which kills 2 guys. And they get like blasters from those guys. So now they have actual guns.
They also have like, is it asteroids physics or whatever? Like shooting also not like...
It's like you shoot and you push
and that
yourself.
also like pushes you back.
I think that would happen.
Does that make sense in 0G?
Lasers.
Like,
I don't know that lasers have... yeah, I don't know. Because with a gun
might do it,
you're forcing it out. Like the bullet is the projectile, but the gun is making like the explosion. And so that would fire you backwards. I don't know that lasers work like that, but it looked cool. And in the comics, lasers kind of do work like that. They blow massive holes and shit.
Yeah, you're right. So now back in the like room of where the bosses are at, Greyshade and Strom are like arguing because Strom is like, this like makes the rebels look good. This is like not a good look for us. And Greyshade's like, shut up. And he has to leave. And then Strom passes out. Because it turns out...
Strom's like, wait a second. You were like worried a second ago and now you're happy. What are you up to? Oh,
I poisoned your drink, you loser. And then Luke and Leia are sneaking around and they are looking for the like money guys that took the money. And Luke gets to the docking bay doors and he's like surrounded by security. He takes everybody out. He gets on the ship and then he finds out that the ship is actually Greyshade's like pleasure yacht or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, fuck. And then, meanwhile, a Star Destroyer is going through hyperspace. Darth Vader talks to Wormus. He's like, hurry. And he's like, you might break the Star Destroyer. He's like, I don't give a fuck. We got to get there. I felt it in the Force. So,
dude, this is sick because like, this is like Vader.
He humiliates
This is Vader that from now on, from all comment, like, like the Vader in Splinter of the Mind's Eye was like, the words coming out of that motherfucker's mouth were not.
This is slightly crueler. He like makes the dude like crawl around on the ground like a dog.
And it chokes him, but I'm like, I don't know. That's like,
yeah, that's Vader, man. That's Empire Vader.
Us seeing Vader murder somebody and being like, what the fuck is this? Is like 9 setups for the comics. Like he just does that. He's always killing somebody, being like, what the fuck is going wrong? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. This just seems like him.
So back on the ship, Greyshade's like, listen, I'll let you all go. Just let me bone down with Princess Leia and she can marry me and we can be together forever. And Leia's like, fine. And Luke's like, what? And Leia's like, it's my decision. But Greyshade's like, well, you better hurry and figure it out because Han and Chewie are about to kill each other. And there's not that many people left. And then a big explosion happens and then there's like one dude left with them it's three guys left.
Guy like raising like a glider dude. Yeah.
He's like a huge bastard. And Han decides to...
Which, by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, they're in 0G. Does the fact that he have wings, does that actually...
It shouldn't matter at all because there's no lift.
You can't like flap.
Yeah. It just looks cool.
Yeah.
Okay, they were just like, they're kind of flying, so let's give him like a flying enemy.
Yeah, so Han's like,
wait a second.
So Han's like, if we kill this guy, then we'll have to fight each other. So I'll just sacrifice myself and Chewie can take out this guy. So that happens, and meanwhile, they're watching this on Greysade's ship and they see Han fucking die, and Leia's like, fine, I'll do it, but just no more of my friends need to die. So she's like not feeling good. And so that's the cliffhanger for that. And then we go into our last issue of normal length comics before we get into some wild stuff that we'll talk about in a minute. Luke leaves the ship seeing Han. He thinks Han's dead. Leia thinks Han's dead. He's sad. Leia like stops him. They like weirdly kiss and the senator sees it.
They even like talk about that. It's like awkward. Like it's kind of cool because they're like, it's not even like a good kiss, but it's like real and genuine. And fucking the senator like realizes that like he'll never have that with her and he like feels bad.
It's still weird though. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I like it because, like, I don't know, like your first kisses are always like
we didn't know.
and shitty.
We didn't know that it was brother and sister.
Yeah.
I don't even think they knew.
He didn't. Well, he sensed the wrong love. Even the senator, he didn't sense that it was brotherly love.
Right. But back in the arena, it turns out Han's been playing dead. So
he pulls the fucking Marty McFly, like, oh, I put like a steel thing in my, like, when one of the plantoids exploded, he like hid in the explosion and tucked a shield into his stomach so that it looked like he got hit, but didn't.
yeah, but then right after the victory, Strom declares martial law on the station, and he says Greyshade and the Falcon guys need to be killed on sight. Greyshade's like, Mastercom, find the rebels, broadcast the tape, prove their innocence. But Mastercom gets blown away again, and God,
that guy can't.
In a last act of friendship from Mastercom, he releases the magnetic field in the docking bay, and Luke and 3PO get cornered, but they go back to the ship to help Leia. R2 runs into someone on the other side. Chewie is taking his winnings. He's got Han's body. They're going to the docking bay. He gets stopped by Stormtrooper guys. Han gets up, takes him out. It's like the opposite of the Wookiee prisoner trick, pretty much, which is kind of cool. Luke tries to go protect Greyshade and Leia, but he feels that Vader's coming. So that's not good. Vader feels Luke, and he's like, slow up. We're getting there. Scan the satellite. And R2 runs back into Mastercom, who shows R2 how to like put the recording on all the monitors. And the casino sees everything, and they're like, oh, dude, the Empire sucks. And like all the like stormtroopers start to get their ass beat by everybody. Han.
It's one of those like moments where everybody in the crowd feels like they know a little bit too much about the politics. They're like, hey, you guys, this is a neutral place, and we were okay when you were keeping whatever. You're like, Larry, just regular person, you like have this much working knowledge of the politics.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's weird. They all like, and they're just like, fuck you, and they just like riot.
Right, exactly. Which, honestly, kudos. And then Han and Chewie are riding like the like hand truck skiff that has their like big heavy money on it to like get through everything. But then Chewie like runs it into a bunch of stormtroopers and loses all the money again, which is hilarious.
Chewie.
Just the like, all right, we're back to, it's like a very Cowboy Bebop, like, well, we lost the score.
Greyshade is like, get out of here, you rascals. I'll take these guys out. I'll never be able to compete with space heroes like you for Leia. And
dude, Greyshade's tight.
R2 gets launched out of an escape pod, and they Mastercom like launches R2 into space, and they just like fly by and grab him. And then he goes to find Greyshade, and they have like a little friend moment. But it's because Strom shows up, and the senator throws a proton grenade between them, and
he like, I think he kills Strom, right? Like
he totally does. But
yes.
now they're sitting there dying, and Mastercom and Senator are like, we are the best of friends, and they like that's it from them. And then,
but they didn't die. They're like injured, but like
I don't know. It looked like they were bleeding out, but
we don't know.
Yeah, and then,
I like loved their little exit and their little just like, oh, here's a fucking grenade.
And they like get R2 and they go, and then it's like, oh, hey, Star Destroyer, whoops. And then the tractor beam comes, but then an explosion hits the bridge because the Millennium Falcon comes and hits the bridge, which is cool. And then Han reaches out to Luke and Leia, who are like, Han, I cannot believe you're alive. Literally, I saw you die on screen. And he's like, don't worry about it. I don't care. This is just like the last movie that I did. And Vader doesn't know what to do, so he tries to go after the Falcon because the Falcon is his like enemy now because of the Death Star.
He has that fucking is it the Nemesis system from
Lord of the Rings?
From Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. He has like a big fucking stitch down the middle of his face, and he's back.
Thought that bird.
But instead of that working, Luke like uses the Force to like fuck with Vader's head for a second.
It is, yeah. It's like he like gives him a feedback bomb or whatever.
Yeah, and so they just all jump out and they're free, and that is where the mainline Marvel comics end in this publication. However, we're not quite done because at the same time that this was unfolding, there is a magazine that is called Pizzazz. And Pizzazz magazine was a American magazine that was published by Marvel Comics that was like a youth magazine, and it actually only ran 16 issues. So it had like
the entire Star Wars or the entire comic in general.
Pizzazz, like I say, Pizzazz is a magazine. So it has it has like articles, it has like puzzles, it has comic strips.
That Pizzazz only ran 16 or the Star Wars?
No, the full publication only ran from
all of it.
October of 77 to January 79.
Whoa.
Amy Carter as Jimmy Carter's daughter in the White House was like a comic. There's a Harvey Kurtzman comic that he did like at the time of the comics that he used to do. And, you know, pretty crazy.
Pizzazz is just not like a cool title ever.
I know, yeah.
For anything.
But it was like a youth magazine that came out at the exact right time to be a Star Wars magazine. And so the same writers and artists and everything came over and did these like little shorty strips in there. In
Wait,
Pizzazz.
they were the same?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, because I thought, at least for like the first half, it looked like they switched right. Like the art was like better because they had less. Like the quality of the art was like interesting and cool, but the stories were much simpler and they were like,
well, they're one pagers, you know, like,
but they like I guess because maybe now there wasn't hard canon, but it's like this was the same concept as the other comics, which was like, all right, we got to go find another planet, but it's like, is this another time or is this like starting from the same point? Is I don't know.
You know what's crazy is there was a Star Wars in every Pizzazz. Like all 16 Pizzazzes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Is that why the last one was like black and white?
No, so the last one I'll explain. Yeah, I'll explain that in a minute. So Pizzazz number 1, after the Battle of the Death Star, because Pizzazz was actually happening the same time as these other comics that we were reading. It's not like the Marvel comics ended. Because the Marvel comics...
It's like another time, another place.
Well,
same time, other place.
As Jesse knows, right? Like the
same time, similar place.
The mainline story keeps going, but Pizzazz started...
Cheater.
Pizzazz started like way back and then caught up. So the Pizzazz story, first one takes place at the Battle of the Death Star. Luke and Leia have to go to Yavin, to the second rebel base in Akuria with their droids. But R2 is damaged, so he like messes up the navigation and they land in the middle of an Imperial fleet. That's number 1.
It's another one where it's like, oh, I fucked up. Oops, we're here. No, I fixed it.
And it's
now.
even
so it
it's,
won't happen again, but it happened
even
this
less,
time where you're like,
it's even less
good
because
so
it's
weird.
It's even less good because that was the only part that was in that one magazine. So you only get that inciting incident.
Yeah.
Next one, they're on the Imperial ship. The Imperial ship orders them to capture Luke's ship with the tractor beam, and Luke gets out of there. The two Star Destroyers like crash into each other because the two tractor beams pull each other together, which is kind of cool. But then because of that, Luke gets pulled into a gravitational field of a planet and has to crash land, which is hilarious that it's like happened again in the next issue. Number 3, Luke and Leia are now crash landed. Luke and the droids go look around. Leia tries to raise the rebel base. The droids find a big crater, or they think it's a crater, but it turns out it's actually a huge footprint. And they go back to the ship. They need to make repairs. And back in space, the Imperials have now found them on the planet, and they're going to go capture them with fighters. And then in the next one, we're back on the planet, and a giant monster comes to attack. And Luke's like, I bet it's afraid of fire, but it's not. And it grabs Luke, and Leia is going to shoot the monster's hand to get Luke to drop it. And R2
a lot of these like things just feature them shooting big monsters with ray guns and being like, it's not effective. It's like so not Star Wars. It like feels so old fashioned. It's weird.
This was way before the wheel, right?
Yeah.
But then R2 like goes off on a little R2 adventure and finds an even bigger monster that wakes up, and it's like the mom to the little monster that's actually also very big, and she takes her child away like back to preschool.
It's so weird that it's like, hey, stop messing with the animals that are the humans. Actually.
Yeah, and Leia's like, finally, we're safe. But then like TIE fighters show up, and they're running from stormtroopers that landed because I guess TIE fighters have troopers on them. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that.
At this point, TIEs still can go hyperspace.
They have eject seats. They have all sorts of stuff.
Some of the TIE fighter, like there was TIE bombers in some of these that were just like engaging in ship to ship combat. Right. You know, it's wild.
All
it's the
good.
Wild West.
But they end up running into some ruins, and C-3PO hits like a wall with his elbow, and like it presses a button like in Indiana Jones with Billy.
Yep.
And it causes them to like literally disappear. Like the troopers are like, what the fuck just happened? Like literally they vanish. And then Luke, Leia, and the droids are now trying to figure out where the fuck they are, and they run into like these like weird eye kids that like can control the elements. They're like superheroes. I don't even know
I'm
what
trying to think what they remind me of.
like the Inhumans or something. They're like weird.
But like just the design of these kids.
Oh, I don't even know. They just look goofy as fuck.
They are like a 70s sci-fi that's not Star. They're just like,
yes, they do not belong.
I am the star child that uses fire, and I am the one that does like it's just like weird,
just like a
man.
random thing they found on a planet, right? But then the
It's
Imperials
so not matching with Star Wars.
the Imperials find the button that C-3PO hit, so they're also in there. And then now everybody's running, but the 4 kids like use their powers of the elements to take out the troopers. And they take the rebels to this machine that apparently created them, but it doesn't want outsiders. So it shoots a beam at Luke and Leia, which is crazy. Like, it's almost like the Kree. It's almost like Marvel is coming into.
Yes, that's the vibe that like it reminds. A lot of this reminds me of other things from Marvel. And it's just like, oh, I know that from somewhere else, but it makes sense because that's what it is.
So we find out that the computer's name is the Keeper, and it's supposed to be like a terraformer for the planet, kind of. And so
like they're like old species was like driven off, and it was there to like
fix everything.
So that when they returned and like scare things away.
Yeah, with earthquakes, which seems like a great thing to use to like fix your planet, I guess.
Yeah.
Next one, the troops are running away from the earthquake, assuming the rebels are dead. And Luke and Leia find their ship because the Keeper like fixed their ship while they were gone, and they fly away, and they're finally on their way to Akuria, and we get to Akuria 2, and they're looking for the base, but TIE fighters show up and shoot at them. Leia gets on the gun, shoots one down, but they have to crash land yet again. But then another.
They crash land more than just a
so
regular
much.
land.
Right.
Yeah.
And then another laser blast comes and takes out the second TIE fighter, and that's the cliffhanger. Next one, R2 and 3PO check out the TIE fighter. They find out that it doesn't have a pilot, but then suddenly, there's like snow monsters everywhere. And Luke and Leia are now at the crash site. They're also with the snow monsters, but then the mobile rebel base arrives and like saves them. Because the base moves around.
The mobile, that like thing doesn't quite look like a Star Wars, but I was like, what if they made like sand crawl? Like
it looks like
in
a
my
Mighty
head,
Max.
I was like, what is this? Like, I would love to see this in live action.
It looks like one of those like 70s like play sets that like everybody would like lust after.
Polly Pocket and Mighty Max.
Yeah. Like,
It's like
even
the
those big ones.
Technodrome if it was a death sled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yes,
that's
exactly.
In my head, I was like trying to visualize it because I'm like, this would be fucking sick.
100% accurate. Then 3PO and R2D2 are kidnapped by the snow monsters, and Luke talks.
Are they called snow demons?
They're called snow demons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, demons. Yeah, they're demon spirit. They're demonic spirits. And then you find out that this dude is called Colonel Odan, who's running the base. He's like, you got to go back and save my droids. But the colonel doesn't care. But then he's like, you don't understand. I need to fucking get my droids back. So they like send some dudes to clear the canyon. And R2 and 3PO are on their way to a hot spring where they meet the real Colonel Odan, who was like ousted. And you find out that Luke and Leia actually aren't among rebels. They're actually among another set of false flag rebels.
Imperials that took over the ship.
Yeah. But again, I don't know exactly how these two plot lines line up. So I don't think they were happening at the same time. But now they're on the war sled. Luke and Leia figure it out, and they're very outnumbered. So Leia gets captured. Luke goes to the bridge. Then turns out Odan, the real Odan, has a snow flyer, but he needs repairs because the droid that helps him fly it is busted on R2's like eyeball emojis. I got this. And so that goes down. And then the war sled.
This gets so silly.
Luke,
They're
now
like sledding, snow flying. Then they're on like skis. They're on some like Roger Moore ass Bond bullshit.
100%.
This whole like ending thing. I was like,
They decide to drive this like expensive thing off the cliff with Luke like lashed to the mast like a pirate ship, which is crazy. And then like the Imperial ship comes to pick up the fake rebels, and then there's a snowstorm coming, and then the real colonel comes and the droids come to get to the war sled before it goes into the geyser. They get on there. Luke's like, it's no good. They like botch the controls. It's all fucked. They all jump off onto the skis. They get away. Hell yeah. And they got to go save Leia now. And then they're still in a snowstorm and they need to heat the ground. Luke's like, I know. We need to make a trench. Let's melt this snow. So they burrow down, but it like turns out that underneath them was like a big hollow chamber. So
Cave
they just
system.
Yeah, so they just like
He falls.
like shot their way down into a cave system,
Yeah.
which is weird. And
Dude, and here's another Empire thing, except for instead of a space swarm, it's fucking snow worms.
yeah, and they're like, do you see anything? I don't know. And that's like the cliffhanger. And then we get to Pizzazz 16, the last Pizzazz, and R2 finds out that thing is up there, but he also knows about the ice worm. So now they're running on the power skis to get the beast to like get away from that hole, and it attacks the Imperial ship instead. And the commander flies away in the snow flyer. And now the rebels are after them and the tables have turned. And then we get to Star Wars Weekly, which is a weekly Star Wars magazine that was published also starting sometime in 77 or 78. And because
so
Pizzazz,
much Star Wars.
yeah, so because Pizzazz was canceled on a cliffhanger, they decided to wrap.
That's what that last. Okay.
They decided to wrap with one more quick black and white one at the end. Luke and the rebels chase the Imperial officer and Princess Leia, but the like rocket that they like shoot to stop them like is a miss, and Luke like everybody like flies everywhere. Luke's fine. He hops on the snow flyer. He shoots his way into the cockpit, and the thing has to stop. And they save the princess, and they invade the Empire's base on Akuria 2. And R2 turns the engine into a bomb and opens the base up to
This
let the
has
snow
like
demons
shades
in.
of like the Endor mission too, because they're
100%.
Mhm.
100%. They let the snow demons in. Luke and Leia get into the TIE fighters, and they all blow up the base. And Odan is like, I will be a rebel forever. Thank you. Yay. And that, my friends, is where our story ends today.
Yeah, it was sick. I like the comics. The Pizzazz ones didn't do.
No.
They were too
No.
short.
It's surface level, you know. It's a comic strip. It's not quite the same as like a 20-page issue, right?
I feel like I remember these kind of comics when I was a kid in magazines, and it's like kind of fun. I don't think anybody was like, "Oh man, the Pizzazz comics were my shit," because there wasn't really that much.
It was
there.
more like a highlights magazine, like little bonus, right? Like you're getting like 1.5 issues worth of Star Wars across an entire magazine's lifespan, and it actually the comic inside of the magazine outlasted the magazine, which is like crazy.
Yeah, it's like a little other adventure that's the same kind of premise, which is like, all right, we got to go find another thing, and then we crash land 90 fucking times, and yeah, but I don't know. The Marvel stuff was really cool, and it was really interesting to watch it evolve from like the movie to like we don't know like what we're doing in the movie, and then like closer to what more modern
Star Wars is definitely congealing, my friend.
I don't know that I believe that.
Dude, have you read Han Solo at Star's End?
I'm gonna. This is all I'm gonna say to you. I'm gonna give you 3 pieces, spoiler free, 3 pieces of knowledge of
About
the
the
future
next.
comics.
Okay, yeah.
The first thing,
What is this? Your notes?
I have
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, okay.
I have notes about this before I was told we didn't need to read that far. First off, I have there is a besides the fact that there is a character upcoming that is basically a dude in 3D glasses,
I'm all for that.
right? Then I'm just gonna let out the phrase tentacle hentai.
Okay.
And then this one line of dialogue
Uh-oh.
in all the Rebel Alliance.
So the
Only you
portcullis
can
was-
fulfill what must be done. I know this as a priestess and as a woman.
Oh my God. Is it Jolly again? I'm just
No
kidding.
comment?
I love it. That's a great
Get
line.
ready.
It's a really well written line. I'm excited to read it.
So we're now also. Here's the thing. First of all, I just want to say Star Wars comics, wonderful medium for Star Wars. I had a great time reading this. I didn't think I was going to. I thought it was going to be a slog. I thought it was going to be kind of like not my vibe, but I really did enjoy it. And I think that the fact that we're kind of doing this and talking about what it means for Star Wars and how Star Wars is evolving, it's like a great mindset.
100% helps that, like,
it's just a great mindset.
The anything that we encounter, I can digest because I'm like viewing it through the correct thing, which is really like a good lesson to everybody out there about the power of cognitive reframing. And like, you know, if something sucks but you have to do it, why don't you just find a way to make it interesting for yourself? But also, like, I just read the New Gods that were
the Jack Kirby,
I borrowed yours that were from this time, and
like, I think they're older.
I guess like I guess to a lesser degree, I was like, I knew that it was going to be old, and so that once I like wasn't shocked by that, I got to like be interested in what was there. But yeah, I don't know. The stuff was all cool, and it was at least was interesting. It wasn't like dull ever.
No.
Only the pizzazz stuff was just...
It's not good. It's like fluff.
It won... Because the Marvel comics, especially by the wheel, like won me over. I was like, oh, what is this? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's fine.
Right.
Like, it wasn't a lot. And
yeah, and as you now know, a lot of that pizzazz was happening before the wheel even was a thing.
But if anything, it does tell you about the cultural impact of Star Wars. We went through multiple... Like, Star Wars is everywhere. TV, movies, comics, there's trading cards, there's magazines, there's all sorts of stuff. This was huge. You cannot ignore how big that was. And people who weren't alive at the time, none of us were, none of it, like, everyone was losing their mind over this.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't even know if there's been anything like this in our lifetimes.
I don't think so.
Like maybe the Avengers, but like even that was like we already had Star Wars, so it's like we were already ready.
Yeah, we were already cynical to that shit.
But
everything like since Star Wars has chased Star Wars.
Yeah.
There was no Star Wars before Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. But
Probably
next time,
like some dude with the Lone Ranger on the radio. It's like, it's the best thing ever.
Next time, I think we're gonna feel some Star Wars. I feel like I gave you guys a preview on the first episode of what's coming up to read. So now that we've gone through 4 or 5 episodes now, I think 5 now, this is the 5th one. I'm going to just give you the next couple things that are coming up. First thing,
hell yeah.
First thing, you're going to buy a book called The Han Solo Adventures by Brian Daley, which actually has 3 books inside.
Hell yes. It's a nice little orange book.
They're little novellas. The first episode that we're going to do is about the first story, which is called Han Solo at Star's End.
Fuck yeah.
Next one we're going to do is Han Solo's Revenge, which both came out the same year. And then you're going to put that book down for a little while, and you're going to pick up the book that you already bought to read the Star Wars novelization, and you're now going to read the Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back novelization by Donald F. Glutt. And then you're going to watch Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back.
Fucking yeah.
And then we're going to read Star Wars Original Marvel Epic Collection 2, which is where Jesse was.
Hyped. You guys have no clue how bonkers it gets.
I just want to know, as a woman and as a tentacle hentai monster,
all I'm saying is potential Mara Jade vibes.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
What?
Dude, don't throw out the
just
goat.
Put it out there.
Don't throw out the goat just like that.
There.
And then finally after that second Marvel comic, which there are many more, don't worry. But after that second Marvel comic collection, then you finish the Han Solo book with Han Solo and the Lost Legacy.
So when is Star Wars going to enter the MCU then? Because technically...
Technically what? I could have sat there and waited for you to say something for 3 hours.
It's a Marvel comic.
I think.
You know, with the multiverse, it could be said that they do exist.
Doctor Strange.
They're still in another galaxy, though.
But
like, we'd have to get there
in the past, so you have to do time travel and...
Yeah.
Do you think Thanos, like, snapped Luke?
No, because it was only this... he would have been long dead. Luke would have been long dead.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, long dead.
You're right. But that's where we're at. Take us out.
All right. No, you take us out.
Goodbye, everyone. This has been the Star Wars Old Canon Book Club. And right after this, you're going to hear me pretend to be a droid. Have a great night. Goodbye.
And remember, this rabbit doesn't eat carrots. This rabbit, it eats meat.
That's a snappy one. We got to use that more and more. That's a good one.
Hey, no, we ain't no carrot-eating rabbits here. We eat people.
Bun buns are no fun. You need a meat bun. Take me out. Get me out. Goodbye.
The Star Wars Old Canon Book Club is made possible by contributions from our listeners at patreon.com/SWOCBC. Thank you for your support. This month's Patreon Masters of the Force are Benjamin Hicks, Amy W., T-Boneses, Paul Walker, Parker Lang, Hourly Sword, Jazz and Owl, Colin Garmeyer, Evan Alexander Guillen, Peacetime Mando, Metroid Mike, and Matthew Mabroides. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with a discussion about our next selection, Han Solo at Star's End by Brian Daly. This episode was edited by Alex Del Campo and Alex Fasciani. The theme song is Venus, the Bringer of Peace by Gustav Holst, performed by the U.S. Air Force Heritage of America Band. Original show art by Jackie Whistler. See you next time.